Hey guys, tonight, we're going to take a journey back in time together. Imagine yourself stepping into the flickering glow of burning torches, where shadows slip between cold marble columns and the silence grows so thick, it feels like the whole world is holding its breath. At first, everything seems normal. But gradually, a strange tightness creeps into your chest, like something inside is shifting out of place. And back in 400 BCE, if you suddenly felt anxious, short of breath, or panicked, chances are the person next to you would calmly inform you that your womb had floated up into your chest. So, before you sink into the gentle atmosphere of tonight, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It helps me a lot in continuing to bring you these bizarre stories that history has tried very hard to bury. And feel free to leave a comment to let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing how far this journey reaches. Now then, dim the lights. Turn on a fan if you want a little background breeze like a whispering forest. Settle in. And join me as we drift into an era where psychological disorders were sometimes treated with a sniff of herbs and a few ancient murmurs. You open your eyes in ancient Greece. The sunlight here is a soft golden hue, spilling gently across pale limestone. The courtyards are filled with lounging philosophers who sprawl like sleepy cats, endlessly debating unseen things, the nature of the soul, the shape of virtue, the weight of existence. But you're not part of that conversation. You've been crying again. And again. And you're not entirely sure why. It doesn't feel easy to explain, even to yourself. Your father has noticed. Your mother has noticed even more. There were whispers, quiet consultations. A priest was summoned first, then a physician with a long beard and an armful of dried herbs. After much murmuring and nodding, they reach a conclusion. The diagnosis is clear: your womb is restless, not your mind. Not your heart. Not the thousand invisible stresses pulling at your spirit. According to the finest intellectuals and medical minds of the time, your uterus has simply grown weary of its assigned place in your abdomen and has chosen to embark on a spontaneous, rather reckless journey around your body, like a hormonal backpacker seeking new terrain. This, believe it or not, is the infamous concept of the wandering womb. In the ancient world, it was the go-to explanation for nearly every form of female distress. Hippocrates, the revered father of medicine himself, spoke of it without irony. He genuinely believed, as did many of his peers, that the uterus was a free-moving entity within the female body, prone to becoming lost, agitated, or simply bored. If it wandered upward, you might suddenly find it difficult to breathe. If it drifted sideways, your speech might slur or falter. Should it press too closely to the heart, expect panic. Expect trembling. Perhaps even seizures. All of these were considered perfectly logical symptoms of a womb with a mind of its own, and the treatment. Naturally, it involved convincing the womb to return to its rightful place. Some physicians recommended placing sweet-smelling oils or aromatic herbs near the vagina to tempt the wayward organ downward. Others tried the opposite, introducing unpleasant, even foul smells near the nose in hopes of driving the uterus away from the upper body. It was a strange form of aromatherapy mixed with ancient spatial reasoning. A kind of persuasive scent-based architecture, if you will. So now, there you are. You're lying on a low couch made of woven reeds, the texture rough beneath your skin. In one hand, you clutch a cloth soaked in fragrant myrrh, while nearby, someone fans sharp-smelling garlic smoke directly toward your face. You gag reflexively, eyes watering, nose wrinkling. The scent is overpowering. Somewhere within, your womb is presumably intrigued by the change in atmosphere and slowly makes its way home. The crisis, for now, is resolved. Or so they say, but here's an unexpected twist in this already strange narrative. Some ancient Greek women, savvy and subtle, learned to feign symptoms of a wandering womb. For some, it offered a brief reprieve from the unrelenting demands of domestic labor. For others, it was a silent resistance, a hidden strategy to avoid more troubling marital obligations. Whether these stories were widespread truths or symbolic embellishments is still debated among scholars, but the idea remains intriguing. It lingers. The diagnosis was real. So, too, perhaps, was the protest. Now, picture the scene. You are surrounded by family, fathers, brothers, uncles, while learned men discuss the geography of your internal organs as if your body were a scroll someone misplaced in the library. You are not consulted. You are not even invited to listen. You cannot ask why your cousin, who cries more often than you do, has never had his spleen accused of restlessness. He, after all, does not have a uterus. Lucky him. You shift uncomfortably on the mosaic floor, feeling its cold smoothness beneath your bare feet. Your anxiety is real. Tangible. But to those around you, it is simply a displaced organ. A minor domestic inconvenience. There is no shared language yet for trauma, for existential dread, for the deep, confusing ache of being young, female, and unseen in a society that values you more for your dowry than your voice. Your internal world is reduced to biological malfunction. And your healing depends not on empathy, but on the creativity of whoever happens to be diagnosing you. And make no mistake, some healers were wildly imaginative. One common remedy involved a steam bath, where you sat carefully over a bowl filled with heated herbs. It was an early, surprisingly luxurious precursor to modern vaginal steaming. The goal? To envelop the body in calming vapors, coax the womb into stillness, and restore balance. It may have even worked, in part. The sensation of warm steam rising through your body could feel oddly soothing, even comforting, so long as no one got burned in the process. But of course, no one ever explained what might happen if your womb chose that exact moment to float upward again. Still, not every case was met with such gentleness. If your anxiety evolved into fits, convulsions, or sudden outbursts of crying or shouting, the issue was no longer just medical, it was spiritual. That's when the priests would be called. The problem was now possibly divine. Possession, maybe. Punishment from the gods. The treatments changed, chanting prayers, waving olive branches, sprinkling holy water, invoking the favor of deities. Your emotional state was now the concern of religion as much as medicine. And Greece was not alone in this. In ancient Egypt, the uterus was also considered mobile. Though their remedies were sometimes more practical, massages, herbal mixtures, careful changes in diet, there too, the womb had moods, preferences, and whims. You weren't simply a person. You were the host of a temperamental guest, and this way of thinking, it would persist for centuries. Each morning, you wake with a familiar tightness in your chest and confusion in your mind. You flinch at loud voices. You avoid busy fountains. A neighbor comments that your skin looks pale. Another insists that marriage is the only cure. Once you're pregnant, everything will settle. You're 16 years old. Some women, by chance or intuition, did find relief. A midwife might offer fennel tea or valerian root, both of which, as we now know, have genuine calming effects. Others sought quiet corners in sacred temples, practicing deep breathing or participating in mystery rites that promised emotional release. There were whispers of priestesses who didn't just perform rituals, but listened, asked questions, allowed space. It was, in some ways, the earliest glimmer of what we might now recognize as therapy, but those places were rare. And fleeting. Most of the time, your suffering had to be shaped into a story others could understand, a story written by men who had never lived inside a woman's body. And if your experience didn't fit their story, it was ignored. Or worse, rewritten. Eventually, you begin to question yourself. Maybe your womb really is wandering. Maybe your body is misbehaving. Maybe you are too emotional, too fragile, too much. You start to believe you need to fast more, pray harder, avoid strong cheese, stop reading altogether. That quiet, creeping self-doubt. That, more than any herbal remedy or smoky ritual, is the most lasting effect of how anxiety was handled in the ancient world. Not the incense, not the myrrh, not even the garlic smoke. It's the slow erosion of trust in your own perception. The way your reality gets gently overwritten by someone else's voice, and yet, in the small corners of this world, there is still hope. An older woman catches your eye and tells you, quietly, that she once felt the same. She hands you a balm that smells of honey and lavender. You drink a tea that warms your bones. You sit by a riverbank and let the sun find your face, the wound doesn't move. But something inside you does. The anxiety shifts, if only just a little. Even today, historians debate the nature of the wandering womb. Was it truly a medical theory? A symbolic metaphor? A cultural expression of fear and control? Some argue it was an honest mistake. Others suggest it was a clever disguise for deeper discomforts, ambition, intelligence, sexuality. What is certain is this: if you were a woman in ancient Greece and something felt off inside you, your body became a puzzle others felt entitled to solve. Your voice was secondary. Your understanding of yourself was irrelevant. Whether noble or enslaved, wealthy or poor, your anxiety was no longer yours, and so you breathed. Slowly. Cautiously, in through the nose. Out through the garlic. You blink again, and the scene begins to shift. The sharp scent of garlic and pungent herbs recedes, dissolving slowly into something softer, more fragrant. Now, rose oil drifts lazily through open windows, carried in on warm breezes that stir the sheer linen curtains. The architecture around you changes as well. Marble columns rise once more, smooth and towering, but now they gleam with the polish of empire. They are distinctly Roman, grander, shinier, more commanding. The space feels busier. Fuller. The air itself hums with life. Rome is alive. Rome hums like a hive. Outside the villa, the soundscape is a layered symphony of daily life. Sandaled feet slap against cobblestone roads in uneven rhythm. Merchants shout over one another in the marketplace, voices rich with urgency. Fountains burble nearby, their gurgling water mixing with the far-off sound of a lyre being tuned. But here, inside these walls, everything is more subdued. Whispers float through silk-draped rooms. The air is still, perfumed, expectant. You are reclining on a low, cushioned couch, your toga arranged just right, every fold carefully considered. You are holding your posture with care. And you are trying, truly trying, not to cry, because crying is not an option here. Not now. Not for you. You are the wife, or perhaps the daughter, of a Roman citizen, and you know what that means. Roman society values control. Discipline, strength. Order is paramount. Chaos is frowned upon. And women, especially women like you, are not exactly praised for their inner storms. There is no space here for tears that cannot be explained, or for fears that do not come with a proper Roman name. You feel it, though. The nervous energy. The restlessness. Your heart races sometimes without warning. You wake with a start and cannot say why. Occasionally the world feels as if it is tilting, sliding sideways just out of your grasp. But instead of naming these sensations as fear, or anxiety, or panic, you are told something else entirely. You are suffering, they say, from a weakness of spirit. Perhaps even indulgence. It is not your mind that is troubled, but your character. Or worse, your lifestyle. Too many rich meals. Too much time spent lounging. One learned man suggests the cause is simple: you have been reading too many Greek tragedies. All that passion, all that heartbreak and drama, it stirs the humors, he says. And stirred humors are dangerous. Still, the Romans, in all their diversity, offer a wide array of advice. The empire is enormous, and as a result, treatment methods vary depending on your location, your wealth, and the mood or training of whichever physician or philosopher you happen to encounter. On one day, you might be encouraged to soak in cool water laced with rose petals and laurel. On another, a physician brings you a goblet of warm wine steeped with crushed pearls and honey. You sip it cautiously. Your stomach protests. Your mind, however, does not quiet. There is, admittedly, a certain refinement in Roman treatments for what they call female distress. Compared to their Greek predecessors, Roman physicians tend to favor beauty, balance, and sensory calm. There is an elegance to their prescriptions. They suggest music as medicine, poetry as balm, fresh air as remedy. You are sent to walk slowly through gardens filled with cypress trees and peacocks. You are asked to listen to lyre performances. One doctor even suggests you spend time watching fish glide gracefully through water in painted ponds. He assures you this soothes the spleen. You do not know if it is helping your spleen, but watching the gentle movement does slow your breathing. Another suggestion, more practical and more pleasant, is to visit the thermae, the great Roman public baths. There, in the soft echo of marble halls filled with steam and laughter, you follow the prescribed rhythm, from the heat of the caldarium to the lukewarm tepidarium, then finally to the brisk chill of the frigidarium. Warm, then warmer, then cold. You rinse. You sweat. You float. And somewhere within that ritual, there is release. If the heat in your chest is the sign of anxiety, then these shifting temperatures seem to soothe it, if only for a while, but as you know, it is not all rosewater and ritual. You are living in a world meticulously built for men. The very walls around you, the garments you wear, the laws that govern your life, all of it exists to maintain a structure that does not center your voice. You cannot vote. You own little or nothing. Your words are often dismissed, your concerns translated through the voices of fathers, husbands, or physicians. If your anxiety begins to take visible form, if you faint suddenly, tremble uncontrollably, or break into tears in the presence of others, the issue grows more serious. Not because they fear for you, but because your behavior might cast a shadow over the name and dignity of your household, and when appearances are threatened, the responses turn sharper. A wealthy family might send for an apothecary who prepares Pliny's powders, a blend of ground gemstones, rare herbs, and powdered roots, meant to realign the soul or temper the blood. It is not clear if it works. Perhaps it never did. But belief itself was part of the healing. Others may reach for more aggressive cures. Bloodletting is recommended. A few cuts, a measured amount of blood released from the veins, in order to let go of the emotions causing imbalance. This method is not reserved for women, but in cases of nervous women, it is offered more often. You are drained. Physically. And afterward, as you lie pale and lightheaded, you are quiet. So the treatment, they say, is working. Yet Roman women are not without agency, even within these constraints, in the quieter corners of this world, among shaded colonnades and curtained rooms, there is a network of knowledge. The matron of your villa, older, heavier, and cloaked in respect, leans in close and shares her wisdom. She tells you to place rosemary beneath your pillow. She teaches you how to warm chamomile in milk for easier sleep. She presses a smooth stone into your hand and tells you it brings calm when rubbed between your fingers. These are not formal cures, but they help, and then there are the enslaved women of the household. They see you differently. They move unnoticed, observing your moods before others notice. One gently leads you away when the room feels too loud. Another braids your hair tighter when your fingers cannot stay still. One lays a cool cloth on your forehead without asking questions. Their care is quiet. Wordless. It is offered freely, even as they bear the weight of a world that rarely offers them anything in return. Sometimes, though, the anxiety deepens. You begin to cross a line no one dares name aloud. You speak too quickly. You mutter to yourself in the garden. You wake in the middle of the night, gasping, unsure of where you are. You walk barefoot beneath moonlight, whispering to the stars. Whispers begin. Not of care, but concern. Someone summons a priest. Or a seer. Or, more ominously, a well-connected neighbor with opinions and influence. You might be accused of many things, of vanity, of weakness, of foreign influence, of spiritual corruption. If someone powerful takes offense at your behavior, the solution may be swift and quiet. You are sent away. Perhaps to a countryside villa, under the guise of rest. There are no mirrors there. No visitors. No books. No news of the city. It is a kind of exile wrapped in lace, but Rome, for all its rigidity, is also a place of illusion, and some women, clever and bold, learned how to use their anxiety not as a weakness, but as a tool. Among the upper classes, there are stories, whispered, rarely written, of matrons who feigned illness to avoid public events, or who exaggerated their distress to gain power. One tale tells of a senator's wife who claimed she had seen a goddess during one of her episodes. People began to visit her. They believed she had visions. Her home became a place of quiet pilgrimage. She transformed her symptoms into mysticism. And her mysticism into quiet influence. Historians still debate her true motives. Was she mentally unstable? Spiritually gifted? Shrewdly strategic? Perhaps all of these at once. Rome loved masks, both in its theater and its politics, but you want simpler things. You want to breathe without fear. You want to sleep without waking to the sound of your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. You long for peace, however fleeting. And sometimes, you find it. In the rhythm of a poem recited softly to yourself. In the scent of lavender rubbed behind your ears. In the feel of your sandals gliding across smooth marble floors as you pace slowly through the peristyle garden at twilight, there is, of course, the gossip, the other women speak. In kitchens, over loaves of bread. Behind fans. Beside fountains. They swap ideas and herbal recipes, syrups made from figs, pastes of mint, mixtures laced with poppy seeds. Some suggest intimacy as a cure. Others insist on abstinence. Most agree on one thing: the men do not understand. Especially the one doctor who once recommended boiled cabbage leaves for melancholy. He is not welcome at dinner parties anymore. Despite the empire's relentless admiration for strength and control, you start to see the cracks. Anxiety, you realize, is everywhere. Just hidden. Cloaked beneath togas and ritual and public composure. Even the great emperors, they say, are not immune. Julius Caesar feared the night. Augustus avoided thunderstorms. You are not alone in your trembling. That night, you sleep beneath a painted ceiling. The fresco above you is filled with winged gods and golden fruit. The city outside murmurs, a living, breathing organism. A single oil lamp burns beside your bed, casting soft shadows on the wall. You are wrapped in wool. You have had a little wine. Your body still feels uneasy. But someone thoughtful, has scattered rose petals beneath your pillow, and tonight, that is enough. You open your eyes, but everything feels different now. The air is thick with dampness and carries a chill that seeps into your skin. Your breath clouds faintly in front of your face. Beneath your bare feet, the stone floor is coarse, uneven, and cold enough to sting. Around you, the dim light slants through narrow, slitted windows high in the walls, casting long shadows like fingers reaching down from some forgotten place. The light is gray, soft, and distant, like a memory struggling to stay alive. Somewhere beyond the walls, a bell tolls, slow and hollow, cutting through the silence like a warning. You are no longer in Rome, this is the Middle Ages. The time of relics and saints. Of holy relics and feared spirits. A world where unseen forces are blamed for all things mysterious or misunderstood. And you are not feeling well, you haven't been for quite some time. Truth be told, your heart keeps pounding with a rhythm that won't settle. It feels too loud, too close. Your palms sweat even when you are alone, even when the room is cold, even when your body is still. A sense of dread coils in your stomach, tight and insistent. There are moments when you feel the ground might fall away from under you, though you haven't taken a single step. But no one around you has the language for what you're feeling. The word anxiety does not exist in the way you need it to. Instead, they offer terms like fits, or spirit troubles, or, if someone is being lyrical, a churning of the soul. These words drift through the air, sounding poetic but offering no comfort, no clarity, and what makes it worse, what makes it harder to bear, is this: you are not allowed to describe what you feel in your own words, others do it for you. You sit in silence, trembling. Your fingers twist into your apron or clutch a worn rosary, seeking an anchor. But the interpretation of your suffering belongs to someone else. A priest. A husband. A traveling healer. A neighbor with opinions. Whoever arrives first gets to decide what is wrong with you. And that decision shapes everything that follows. If you're lucky, they call you delicate. If not, they call you dangerous, because in this time, in this world, female suffering rarely exists as neutral. In medieval Europe, what we now understand as anxiety is often swept into two narrow and unforgiving categories: witchcraft or weakness. Let's say you live in a quiet village, nestled between woods and farmland, where everyone knows everyone else and news travels faster than wind. Over time, the signs begin to show. You cry more than usual, and people notice. You gasp awake in the night, unable to breathe. You no longer sing during Mass. You avoid eye contact. You walk more slowly. And so the whispers begin. Some villagers murmur that it might be sorrow. Others, more fearful, suspect you have been touched by something darker. A bad dream might be enough. A disagreement heard through thin walls. A single evening walk alone beneath the moonlight. That is all it takes. Your visible distress, in a world ruled by fear and ritual, begins to look suspicious. Madness, they might say. Or worse, malice. But not every outcome is cruel. Sometimes, you are fortunate enough to cross paths with a midwife, an herbalist, a quiet woman who knows more than she admits. These women are the guardians of ancient, unspoken knowledge. They understand the movements of the moon, the way the body responds to weather, to grief, to the slow wear of daily fear. They have memorized plants and roots and rhythms. They know how to grind poppy seeds and willow bark into soft pastes to still the breath and calm the mind. One might press a sachet of dried lavender into your hands and tell you, gently, to wear it close to your heart. Another steeps chamomile in goat's milk and waits while you sip, watching you with a kind of quiet recognition no monk has ever managed to express. These women are respected, but also feared. The border between healer and witch is invisible, constantly shifting. It is a line not defined by knowledge or skill, but by male suspicion. The safer you feel with them, the more danger they may be in. So your visits are secret. You look over your shoulder. You walk the long way home. One morning, it happens in church. Your hands will not stay still. Your stomach curls in on itself. You haven't eaten much, and your knees are shaking. The priest watches. He steps forward. His judgment is swift. Possession, he retrieves a vial of holy water. He touches it to your forehead with solemn ritual. You flinch, not from the coolness, but from what this act means. You are no longer just an unsettled woman. You are now a vessel for evil. You are a threat that must be purified. The exorcism follows. It is long, heavy, and public. Your family gathers around you. Their faces are a mixture of worry and fear. You cry, harder than before. The tears are thick with shame now, though fear still lingers beneath. You try not to scream when hands are placed on your head and shoulders. Prayers echo around you. Latin words you barely understand. They do not help. But they give everyone the illusion that help is being offered. The church feeds on that illusion. It thrives on it. Later, after the ritual has ended and the others have gone, a nun enters your room. She moves quietly. She places a warm cloth on your forehead. Her voice is low and kind. She whispers, "You just need sleep." You do not ask her if she has ever felt this way. You do not have to. The answer is already in her touch. Let us speak of convents. Despite what some believe, many women chose the convent freely. Within those walls, they found access to books, learning, structure, and sometimes even leadership. It was one of the only places where a woman could hold authority without a husband or father beside her. But even here, it was no sanctuary for misunderstanding. If you displayed signs of anxiety too openly, too often, it was interpreted through the lens of faith. A nun who wept during prayer or shook during evening silence might be seen as weak in spirit. Or worse, straying. Some were locked away. Others, however, became mystics. 2 women. 2 identical symptoms. One weeps and is called mad. The other claims she sees angels and is celebrated. One is hidden. The other is sainted. The outcome depended entirely on who saw it first, who interpreted it, and what they needed to believe. To this day, historians continue to debate whether those mystical visions were expressions of divine ecstasy, or symptoms of untreated mental suffering. Some suggest these were moments of dissociation, responses to trauma or confinement. Others believe they were expressions of yearning, of deep need, in women with no safe place to put their pain. Regardless of interpretation, one fact remains: these women were not truly treated. They were labeled. Back in your village, the treatments come without end. You are told to eat more bread. Then told to eat less. You are instructed to walk barefoot through morning dew. To rebalance the humors, they say. They wrap you in wet linens. They sit you near fire. They burn herbs you cannot name and instruct you to inhale deeply. One woman suggests leeches. Another tells you to bury an egg beneath your front step, and then remain silent for 3 days. You try them all. Desperation makes you obedient. But none of it works. Here is the great irony: the entire world around you is filled with terror. Fear of hell. Of the plague. Of damnation. Of curses. The people you live with wake each day under the weight of invisible punishments and divine tests. Everyone is anxious, though no one calls it that. But your anxiety, your suffering, it is questioned. It is gendered. It is dangerous, and if your behavior continues, too many episodes, too many tears, too many sleepless nights, then the murmurs begin again. Not of sympathy, but suspicion. Someone brings up witchcraft. They remind others that you once looked at a child who later developed a fever. That you keep to yourself too often. That you speak under your breath when you think no one is listening. You try to explain. You tell them your thoughts race. That your chest aches. That your mind will not be quiet, but they do not hear that part. The tests begin. They ask you to stand in water. They watch to see if you float. They prick your skin and look for blood. They place holy relics in front of you and study your eyes. Your body is a mystery to them, and they are determined to solve it, without your help. Inside, your chest still tightens. Your breath still stutters. But now, someone is lighting a pyre. And it all began with panic. Not all women meet that end. But far too many do, and yet, even in this world so saturated with fear, small places of safety remain. You discover a glade, tucked beyond the trees. Hidden. Silent. An older woman lives there. She does not ask questions. She does not demand explanation. She gives you mint leaves to chew. She shows you how to twist pine resin into cords that smell sweet and settle the breath. You stay in her cottage for 7 nights. You sleep beneath a thatched roof, beside a small fire. Slowly, you begin to breathe easier. She tells you stories. About bees, about tides, about how the moon speaks to the ocean and the ocean always listens. About how the body, when frightened, may only be trying to bring you home. Her voice is gentle. Her words are old. And for the first time in weeks, you feel something shift inside you. When you return to the village, the stairs continue. But you are different now. You carry a satchel at your side. It holds sprigs of rosemary, petals of marigold. A carved stone that warms in your hand. Sometimes you light the herbs. You breathe them in slowly. Deeply. You remember that not every judgment is true. Not every cure must hurt. And not every voice deserves to be louder than your own, because behind all the spells, beneath every chant, beyond every vial and verse, one quiet truth endures. A truth passed down from woman to woman, through whispers, through glances, through touch. You are not possessed, you are simply overwhelmed, and that, too, deserves care. Your breath catches as it meets the cold air, sharp and damp like morning fog settling in the lungs. Another bell sounds, low and resonant, ringing through the stillness with a deeper tone this time, as though the very stones are reverberating with it. The sound drifts through stone corridors and into your chest like a reminder, you are not in the forest anymore. You are not in the chapel of your village, either. You are in a place where the walls are made to contain both silence and sorrow. This is a convent. You have been sent here for peace. That is what they tell you. A sanctuary for quiet contemplation. A holy space where prayer will tame your restlessness, where solitude will smooth away your trembling hands and hollow silences. They say it kindly, almost gently. But you understand what they truly mean. You were too much at home. Too loud when you cried in the night. Too pale when your knees gave out in the field. Too distant when your eyes stayed fixed on the sky longer than was proper, so now you are here, the nuns watch you closely. They do not look at you with cruelty, but with caution. Their gazes are soft, but their observations are constant. You sleep in a narrow cell, its stone walls blank and close. A small wooden cross hangs over your bed. Your sheets are scratchy, your blanket thin. Every day begins the same way, a bell tolling in the dark, a slow procession to chapel, a psalm whispered through half-closed lips. You murmur the words. You bow when they do. You fold your hands tightly and smile when you must, but inside, the tremors remain, your heart still races without warning. It jumps and jolts like a frightened bird. Your stomach clenches until it feels like it might disappear. Nothing around you feels dangerous, and yet your body behaves as if it is being hunted. You wonder if anyone, just once, will say aloud what it truly feels like, a fear that refuses to end, even when the danger never begins. In the convents of medieval Europe, the line between holiness and heresy is drawn thin. Women who collapse in prayer, who weep before the altar, who hear voices whispering scripture, are sometimes called chosen. Their trembling is reimagined as rapture. Their suffering becomes sacred. But if your distress manifests in other ways, if you hide from communal worship, if you shudder and sob in corners, if your silence stretches too long or your anger arrives too fast, then you are considered troubled. A soul in need of correction. A mind in need of cleansing, there are records that survive. Pages from old journals and chronicles that speak, with strange detachment, of sisters who refused food, tore at their veils, screamed in the dark, saw flames in visions and blood in dreams. Historians still debate their meanings. Some say it was divine ecstasy. Others argue it was unspoken trauma, the body's way of releasing pain that had no words. Some believe these were the earliest signs of mental illness left untreated. And yet, while some of these women were punished, locked away in cells, denied communion, forced into silence, others were elevated. Called saints. Revered, you are neither, you try to remain unnoticed. You move through your days with downcast eyes and folded hands. You sew altar cloths, sweep stone floors, bow your head. But your body continues to betray you. One day, during Mass, your fingers begin to twitch. At first, you try to still them, pressing them together tightly, hoping no one sees. Then your forearms begin to shake. You close your eyes and pray harder, whispering the verses faster. But the pressure builds beneath your skin, and it feels like fire crackling along your nerves. The room begins to tilt. You gasp, stumble forward, and fall, the chapel erupts into motion. Someone rushes to your side, pressing a cloth to your forehead. A cool hand steadies your shoulder. Another voice begins to chant a prayer, low and rhythmic. A third nun, older, with a sharp jaw and eyes like polished slate, leans down. She asks if you have been fasting as instructed. Her voice is not angry, but firm, threaded with quiet suspicion. You nod. Of course you nod. There is no room here for the truth. No space to say you are exhausted from waking up afraid. That you haven't truly slept in weeks. That you feel as though your very bones are vibrating. That there is a weight inside your chest pressing down with every breath. The convent's physician is summoned the following day. He arrives in a long robe lined with dark fur, his hands pale and dry. He smells faintly of vinegar and smoke. His fingers are cold as he examines you, checking your pulse, your tongue, the clarity of your eyes. He mutters to himself. Then he delivers his verdict with careful precision, a female imbalance, he says. Possibly hysteria. She needs bleeding. The treatment takes place before evening prayers. Your arm is bound. A vein is opened. Blood flows into a shallow bowl. They tell you this is a purification, a rebalancing. That once the blood is gone, so too will be the chaos inside you. But it isn't. Afterward, you feel lightheaded. Your body is fragile, hollowed out. You lie in your narrow cot with your face turned toward the wall. A younger nun sits beside you, reading from the Psalms. Her voice is quiet, gentle, steady. You listen to her words, but they drift through you like fog. You want to ask her if she's ever felt this way. If her chest has ever felt like a locked room. If her breath has ever failed her for no reason at all. But the words stay trapped behind your teeth. No one asks questions like that here, and outside these walls, the world is not more forgiving. In manor houses and stone keeps, noblewomen suffer in silence. Their hands shake during feasts. They retreat to their chambers at the sound of thunder. They flinch from loud laughter. Their physicians label it many things. Womb heat. Overrich blood. Humoral disorder. They are prescribed bitter teas, cold compresses, leeches, sometimes music. But rarely is the true diagnosis offered. Rarely does anyone say aloud the thing you would if you were given the chance. I live with fear I cannot name, and it lives in me every day. Some women disappear into illness, finding safety in sickness. Others lose themselves in ritual. Some begin to write. Inside convent libraries, secret histories unfold. There are parchments, hidden in cupboards and drawers, filled with trembling handwriting. Letters that read like confessions. Margins lined with frantic prayers for peace. One sister speaks of finding comfort in candlelight. Another describes burning visions and waking with numb hands. They do not use the word anxiety. But it is there, in every ink-stained line. Among the nuns, strange remedies persist. A visitor from the south carries with her a small iron medallion bearing the image of a saint. She tells you to place it beneath your tongue when the shaking begins. You try it. The metal is dry and tastes like ashes. It brings no peace. Someone else advises you to sleep with garlic under your pillow. Another gives you a vial of wormwood mixed with honey and tells you to take it before dawn. You try them all. Perhaps they help. Or perhaps it is the feeling that someone finally believes you are hurting. And then there are the others, the women who cry out at night. Whose rooms are bolted from the outside. Whose names are no longer spoken. You hear them sometimes, down the long corridor past the kitchens. Muffled sobs. Guttural laughter. Voices that rise and fall like storm winds. You are told to ignore them. To focus on your prayers. To ask no questions. Ever. But you wonder if they once felt just as you do now. Sometimes, rarely, someone kind intervenes. There are stories, small, scattered, of bishops with gentle eyes. Of physicians who carry healing herbs instead of knives. A few women are removed from religious life and taken to quiet farms, distant from towns and noise. There, they are given sun and space. Goat's milk. A wax tablet to write their thoughts. It is not much. But it is something, and for you, even the smallest kindness matters. One day, a traveling midwife visits the convent. Her basket overflows with herbs, wrapped in soft linen. You are asked to help her unpack. She notices your hands, still trembling slightly. She says nothing at first. Then, as she hands you a bundle of dried lemon balm, she speaks. You carry too much. The words stop you, they are simple. But they are true in a way nothing else has been. She instructs you to steep the lemon balm gently. Not with boiling water, but warm. Drink it slowly, she says. Let the morning light touch your face while you do. You follow her instructions. You cradle the cup in both hands. The warmth spreads into your fingers, into your chest. That night, when you lie down, something shifts. Your body does not fight itself. Not as much. For the first time in weeks, you do not dread sleep. You let the quiet come, because anxiety, in any century, is not madness. It is the mind crying out beneath too many burdens. It is sorrow trapped beneath layers of politeness and prayer. It is the ache of staying still in a life that always tilts. You lie on your narrow cot, your hands resting gently over your ribs. Your breath comes in slow pulses. You still feel the fluttering, like wings against bone. But it no longer startles you. Not tonight. The candle by your side dances softly. The stone around you glows warm with its light, and for this one small moment, no one is watching. There is only you, still here, still breathing. The scent of lemon balm fades slowly, drifting out like a last breath of peace. Around you, the convent walls begin to melt, giving way to a whirl of colors, sounds, and motion. The air sharpens, the silence breaks, and you find yourself somewhere new. A Renaissance city rises around you, alive with movement, nestled somewhere between Florence and Paris. Cobblestone streets gleam from the morning rain, slick and shining beneath the hurried feet of merchants and nobles. The markets are already awake, buzzing with the bartering of traders, the clatter of carts, and the melodic trill of birds perched on tiled rooftops. Everything smells faintly of wax, citrus, and wet stone. The world here is louder. Brighter. Faster. But your body has not changed with the setting. You are still anxious, only now, that anxiety faces a strange new danger, the possibility of being turned into a fashion. This is the Renaissance. An age when knowledge stretches out of the grip of superstition and begins to bloom into science. But not every bloom is kind. Physicians wear long embroidered robes, their collars stiff with starch and their hats reaching high into the air like symbols of their elevated minds. Their instruments gleam, polished and sharp, resting on linen cloths in shadowy rooms. Their words are longer now, and their theories are richer in Latin, but when you step into one of these chambers with trembling hands and shallow sleep, the diagnosis still sounds very familiar. Your blood is too thick, your bile is lazy, your brain is holding too much moisture. No one asks what burdens your thoughts. No one wonders what sorrows coil in your chest. Instead, they lift your wrist, press their fingers to your pulse, examine your tongue and the color of your urine. They trace your humors and declare them disordered. The solution is ancient, yet still revered: you are to be bled. The tools may be newer, the rationale more refined, but the method remains unchanged. The body, they insist, holds 4 sacred fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and when they fall out of balance, so too does the mind. Fear, sadness, nervousness, these are not emotions, but symptoms of imbalance. Melancholy, they believe, comes from too much black bile. And in a woman, melancholy is more than inconvenient. It is suspicious, so you are drained, sometimes with leeches, placed behind your ears or beneath your arms. Other times with a blade, drawn carefully along your forearm. Always with the solemn confidence of someone who believes that feelings can be measured in ounces. You sit upright as they cut. You do not cry. The world spins gently around you, and you are told this dizziness is a good sign. It means the poison is flowing out. Later, when the bleeding is done and your bandages are stained and your fingers have gone cold, you lie down with damp hair and lips like parchment. Your breath is shallow. Your chest still tightens. Your hands still shake, because what you carry is not poison, it is panic. You try other remedies. A cousin, well-meaning, wealthy, and always just a little too cheerful, recommends the Renaissance purge. She calls it elegant. It is not. It involves boiled herbs, dried berries, and something sharp and bitter that forces your stomach to turn. You are told this method cleanses the body and, in doing so, calms the mind. It does not. You try it once. You spend a day curled in bed, and you do not try it again. Others are more gentle. You sip wines brewed with fennel, chamomile, and rue, their sweetness warming your throat. You press amber stones into your palms and wait for the shaking to subside. You soak in water perfumed with crushed violets and rose hips. These rituals are soft. They bring moments of stillness. But still the anxiety returns. A faint buzzing just beneath your skin. A breath that catches before it fully lands. A shadow that walks one step behind you, always there, even in sunlight. Some say it is caused by reading, and in truth, you have found comfort in books. The printing press has arrived, and with it, 1,000 new voices. Pamphlets whisper bold ideas from street corners. Letters pass from hand to hand. A few even dare to suggest that women might be capable of thinking. But there are those who disagree, loudly and with certainty. One pamphlet warns that books warm the blood and loosen the senses. Another declares that women who read alone too often are vulnerable to dangerous dreams. A physician writes that the solitary act of reading disrupts the natural rhythm of the womb. You keep reading anyway. Then, one morning, a letter arrives. The wax seal is unfamiliar, but the script is graceful. You are invited to a country estate. A restful retreat, it says, meant for women of nervous disposition. The phrasing is gentle, almost flattering. You pack quietly. You leave the city behind. The journey takes days. Mud clings to the wheels of the cart. Birds cry out in the distance. When you finally arrive, the house looms ahead, wrapped in ivy and quiet as snowfall. Inside, the halls are wide and cool. The windows look out over rolling fields. The air smells like lemon soap and damp wood. You are not alone here. Other women drift through the rooms, their faces pale and their hands always half clenched. Some flinch at the touch of another. Some speak rapidly, unable to stop. One woman walks in wide, looping circles around the garden. Another sings under her breath, even in sleep. None of them are dangerous. But few are believed. This place is not a prison. Not quite. But it is a container. A soft wall to place between you and the rest of the world. A doctor visits every Thursday. He asks polite questions. He recommends more bleeding. More bitter tea. Less poetry. You are advised to avoid the color red. You are instructed to wear wool instead of silk, as texture, apparently, affects female equilibrium. You stop asking why. You nod. You agree. You adapt, but even here, rebellion flickers. One evening, when the corridors are quiet and the moon sits high in the window, the women gather. A single candle is lit in the center of the room. Lavender wine is passed around in cups no larger than thimbles. You sit cross-legged on a worn rug. The laughter is quiet at first, then louder, warmer. Someone produces a book. A treatise on melancholy, penned by a respected scholar. The margins are filled with ink, notes and underlines, small stars beside every sentence that feels too close to home. Half the book has been marked. You laugh until you cry. But the tears come with relief, not shame. Because for the first time in a long while, you are not alone in what you feel. The tremors in your hands do not separate you. They unite you. You are understood. Not cured. But seen. Still, a deeper thread weaves through this age. The Renaissance is rising. Knowledge expands. Medicine evolves. But so do the punishments. Women who break from the expected pattern, who walk barefoot through crowded markets, who mutter to themselves in doorways, who cry out at the moon, are often silenced. Especially if they are poor. Or too loud. Or too brave. You read of a woman in Milan who was found in a public square, talking to the wind. She was arrested and sent to a hospital, where she was strapped to a bed and studied. Another, in Seville, saw angels in her dreams and was burned at the stake. A third, in Geneva, refused to marry. Her brothers locked her in the attic. No one can agree on what they suffered from. Some say madness. Some say grief. Some say the world was simply too narrow for them. The institutions built in this era speak of order, but they are rarely built for care, and as the years progress, female emotion becomes something to be measured, recorded, dissected. No longer labeled as possession, it is now called imbalance. Irrationality. Overreaction. The terms change. The attitudes do not. There is, however, one odd silver lining. A small mercy. Some doctors begin to recommend music. They ask you to sit near a lute and listen. To let the notes stretch across your skin like silk. To allow harmony to settle your humors. It is the first treatment that does not involve cutting or emptying or silence. And, surprisingly, it helps. Not completely. Not forever. But enough. You begin collecting your own remedies, a sprig of rosemary tied with ribbon. A sachet of chamomile hidden in your pocket. A song you hum when your breath shortens. A memory, vivid and bright, of that night on the rug with women who trembled as you do. The anxiety remains. It never leaves entirely, but it no longer rules you, and maybe, for now, that is enough. The candlelight dims, trembling at the edge of sleep, and the scent of violet wine dissolves into something sharper. Ink, ash, bitter orange, and the faint sting of iron. The walls around you shift again. The seasons stretch forward. The years tumble past like leaves caught in a gust of wind. You are still in Europe, but the Renaissance has folded itself into something newer. The elegance of marble halls and painted ceilings has been replaced by conversation, logic, and experiment. You awaken into a world that worships the mind. This is the age of enlightenment. The salons are full. The drawing rooms buzz with ideas. Men in tall white wigs speak in measured tones while sipping spiced coffee. Their fingers stained with ink and tobacco. Names like Locke, Voltaire, and Descartes are uttered with reverence. They debate liberty, reason, the nature of the soul. The world is being divided into categories, outlined in volumes, measured with rulers and reason. And if you are a woman who suffers from anxiety, you become an uncomfortable question. A contradiction that refuses to be explained, because reason rules here now. And emotion is its shadow. You live in a time when minds are being mapped like territories. Physicians draw diagrams of thought, as if the soul could be located behind the ribs or just beneath the tongue. Philosophers try to peel intellect away from passion, to name and number what once felt unknowable. But still, when you tremble at night or forget how to breathe while stitching lace, no one knows what to call it. You are labeled sensitive, fragile, excitable, nervous, if they wish to be kind, but soon, a new word appears. Sleek and cold. It slips into the conversation like a shard of glass catching light, hysteria. It still means you, of course. It still traces its roots back to your womb, your nerves, your sorrow. But now it comes wrapped in syllables and clinical tones. Gone are the candles and chants. In their place are medical charts and observation journals. Hysteria becomes the fashionable diagnosis for women of means who suffer from anything that cannot be measured. Fainting spells, gasping breath, sudden tears, trembling fingers, restless sleep. It is a term that blankets every form of distress that society cannot explain. It is a net cast over a sea of women who cannot stop shaking. The irony of this age lies in its obsession with logic. Enlightenment thinkers catalog everything. They classify, compare, dissect. The human body becomes a system of pipes and pulses. The mind, a machine of levers and steam. Men with precise script and quiet authority begin to publish long texts about the female nervous system. Your body becomes a curiosity. Not something to understand, but something to observe. Your doctor might own one of the newest illustrations, a delicate, hand-colored map of nerves. It resembles a subway chart, stretching from the head to the fingertips, from the stomach to the spine. The uterus is circled in ink. Arrows point from it to the lungs, the heart, the brain. The logic is flawed, but the picture is elegant. When you ask what might ease the pain, he prescribes laudanum. Laudanum is opium softened by alcohol. A tincture kept in a dark bottle with a cork stopper. It is both medicine and escape. At first, it soothes. You sleep deeply, maybe even dreamless. But soon you find yourself needing it more often. You reach for the bottle with trembling fingers. Your hands are not calmer. They only feel farther away. You recline on a chaise longue. Sunlight crosses your dress in golden bands. Your pulse flutters. You grip your fan more tightly. A relative, perhaps your aunt, tells you to seek out the coast. The salt air, she insists, will chase away the shadows. You go, you walk along the wet sand as wind tangles the ribbons beneath your bonnet. The horizon is silver and wide. You breathe deeply. For a few moments, the tide seems to carry the panic out with it. You feel clean. Almost light, but that night, in the silence of your lodging, it returns. Slowly at first, like a whisper. Then louder. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts quicken. The stillness that was once comforting begins to feel too sharp. This is the age of the rest cure. For women of means, doctors now recommend a period of absolute stillness. Dark rooms. Closed shutters. No conversation, no reading, no walking. You are placed in a bed and told not to rise. Not even to write. Stimulation, they claim, only inflames the nerves. It is meant to calm you. In practice, it breaks you. Women subjected to the rest cure often grow more anxious. Their bodies lie still while their minds twist and curl into knots. Some keep secret journals beneath the mattress. Others stare at the wallpaper so long it seems to move. One woman, later immortalized by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, begins to see a woman trapped inside the wallpaper itself. Her story ends poorly. You try the rest cure. You last 4 days, then you pull a book from beneath your pillow and read by the flickering light of a candle, barely breathing as each page turns. The guilt stings, but the words are a balm. For a few moments, your thoughts feel sharper, more whole. You are not better, but you are not dissolving. This is a strange kind of progress. For the first time, society admits that women have nerves. That they feel. That they are affected. But it is still treated like a flaw. A fragile structure in need of reinforcement. You are no longer a vessel for demons. You are not wicked. You are just delicate, delicate enough to receive treatment, delicate enough to justify silence, delicate enough to be controlled. In the larger cities, nerve hospitals begin to open. These are not dungeons. Not always. Some look like country estates or holiday homes. They smell of linen and lavender. You might be sent there if your tears become too frequent. If your hands shake at dinner. If your stitching goes uneven. Inside, everything is charted. Day 1, patient avoids eye contact. Requests to write letters. Declines tea. Day 5, patient walks in garden. Complains of fatigue. Sings softly. Day 10, patient is still. Smiles more. Eats soup, but you are not better. Just quieter. Just tired. The Enlightenment adores case studies. Physicians record their patients like specimens. One woman refuses to speak for 3 weeks. Another faints at the sound of thunder. A third grows agitated whenever she sees red velvet. Their stories are copied and circulated. They become examples. They become curiosities. You wonder, if someone wrote about you, what would they say? You do not cry in public. You do not collapse. But your chest tightens until you can barely breathe. You dread dinner invitations. You pick at your fingers until they sting. Your mother says you are moody. Your father tells you to marry. Your suitor says you are charming, especially when you are silent. You begin to take your laudanum earlier in the day, and still, there are flickers of change. In one part of the city, a new physician opens his practice. He treats female nerves with conversation. He listens, carefully. He writes notes as you speak. He does not interrupt. He does not scold. He says your feelings are not failures. You almost cry from the relief. It does not last. He is arrested for debts. He disappears to Vienna, but something has shifted. Among the tea rooms and science salons, a few voices begin to murmur. Perhaps this flood of female emotion is not weakness, but signal. Perhaps the trembling is not irrationality, but recognition. Perhaps women are not fragile, but overwhelmed. Perhaps the world has grown too loud, too demanding, too narrow, and the body is only reflecting what the heart has always known. Historians still debate the rise in diagnoses during this period. Some believe the anxiety was real, a result of corsets, isolation, expectation. Others say it was social repression taking a new shape. A few suggest that it was centuries of being told to be quiet, now rising up through the skin, whatever the cause. You endure it, you prepare your own rituals. A cup of chamomile brewed just right. A half dose of laudanum when the hands begin to flutter. A quiet corner of a garden where the wind feels soft against your cheeks. A patch of sunlight that does not make you cry, you keep going, and sometimes, in the hush just before dawn, you allow yourself to imagine something impossible, a world where anxiety does not mean weakness, a world where anxiety does not mean exile, a world where anxiety means only what it truly is, the proof that you are still human. Still feeling. Still here. The corset loosens, the powder fades from your cheeks, and you open your eyes to a new century taking shape outside your window. Gaslights shimmer along the winding streets like fireflies caught in glass. Carriages clatter across damp cobblestones, the wheels echoing between brick walls and wrought iron fences. Somewhere nearby, a phonograph hums a trembling violin tune, its notes floating into the fog like smoke. You are in the Victorian era now, and your anxiety is about to be redressed in lace, veiled in velvet, and filed away in a medical ledger like an exotic botanical specimen pressed between the pages of a book. You are standing in a parlor filled with shadow and scent. The curtains are drawn. The carpet floral and thick, the armchairs heavy with fringe and dust. A maid, with her hands deft and impersonal, tightens the laces of your corset. Your ribs contract. You gasp, not only from the compression but from the familiar ripple of panic that blooms up from your core like a fever. Your pulse flutters beneath your skin. Your legs feel insubstantial. Your vision tilts. And once more, you are told that you suffer from a nervous disposition, a phrase so worn it barely means anything anymore. The diagnosis offered this time, still hysteria, though now it arrives with embossed pamphlets and published protocols. It no longer howls from pulpits or drips from bleeding bowls. Instead, it walks politely through parlors, dressed in medical terms and clinical etiquette. The Victorians have made an industry out of female emotion. What once condemned women to fire or isolation now sends them to drawing rooms and doctors' offices. They are no longer burned or exorcised. They are examined, studied, prescribed, and then gently, almost courteously, dismissed. Your physician gives you a printed card. It lists your symptoms in neat cursive: rapid heartbeat, persistent fatigue, mood disturbances, disturbed sleep, weak digestion. He recommends what is now commonly referred to as the rest cure. You know the term. You dread it. It means removal. It means retreat. It means being placed in a room where the curtains never open, where books are forbidden and conversation discouraged. You are not allowed to write. You are not allowed to move. You are to lie still, like a portrait. Like a corpse that breathes. The man behind the rest cure is Dr. Silas Ware Mitchell, an authority of the time. He believes that your mind has been overworked, overstimulated, and that your thoughts must be silenced to allow the nerves to recover. His solution is withdrawal. Not from life, but from everything that gives it color. No stimulation. No stories. No sunlight. Only padded furnishings and soft voices. You comply. At first, you last 6 days. On the 7th, when the nurse brings you plain broth and a faint smile, you begin to cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just steadily, until your throat aches. Moved by your quiet despair, she hesitates. Then, wordlessly, she slips you a pencil no longer than your finger and a scrap of paper torn from the back of a ledger. You write only 4 sentences. It is enough to feel like treason. You fold the paper and slide it under your mattress like a confession. This is not healing. This is disappearance. Still, hysteria remains the fashionable affliction. It appears in novels, in painted portraits, in newspaper serials. The fainting woman becomes a cultural icon, draped over a chaise longue, eyes closed, one hand pressed to her forehead as if the weight of the world has settled just behind her eyes. The other hand hangs limply, waiting to be revived by salts or sympathy. Sometimes, when you are too weary to resist, you mimic the posture. It is easier, you find, to inhabit the part than to challenge it. The medical advice remains endless, often contradictory. Some doctors suggest horse riding to balance your humors. Others command you to remain in bed for months. One Parisian physician swears by morning sessions of being cradled and gently rocked in a suspended hammock. Another, more severe and less whimsical, insists on electrical currents administered to your scalp in hopes of realigning your thoughts. This is referred to as neurological recalibration. You find it terrifying. They examine your posture, your circulation, your stomach. Rarely, if ever, your mind. The prevailing theory is simple. Women feel too much. They are overtuned instruments, too delicate to withstand the noise of the modern world. Their nerves are imagined as fine harp strings that, when brushed too vigorously, vibrate out of control. Madness, then, becomes a matter of music. And your body plays its discordant notes whether you want it to or not, and then, quietly, something shifts. A new word begins to emerge, spoken softly in medical journals and whispered in salons. Neurasthenia. Coined by an American physician, the term promises something more modern, more scientific, more gender-neutral. It describes fatigue of the mind. Headaches. Dizziness. Difficulty concentrating. A fog that settles over thoughts and emotions alike. At first, it is applied to men. Soldiers returning from long campaigns. Clerks buried in paperwork. Inventors who speak too quickly and sleep too little. This new anxiety becomes, for them, a badge of civilization's cost. A mark of overuse. A symptom of being vital and engaged, but for you? Neurasthenia is simply another version of the same burden, now wrapped in velvet instead of flannel. You are still too imaginative. Too fragile. Too female. Your treatment shifts accordingly. Lavender oil is massaged into your skin each morning. You are given bone broth for strength. Your emotions are color-coded with ribbons pinned discreetly to your sleeve. Blue for sorrow. Yellow for anger. Green for unease. This is meant to help your physician track your moods. You feel like a walking chart, and then there is the machine. In certain medical offices, the treatment for hysteria involves mechanical pelvic stimulation. It is clinical. Detached. Your physician does not look at your face. The procedure is not discussed. You do not ask questions. No one ever calls it pleasure. It is described instead as relief. A necessary discharge. A physical correction for a mental misfire. You leave the building shaky, confused, ashamed. No one mentions it again. You begin to seek alternatives. Your neighbor, a quiet widow with observant eyes, walks the city gardens every morning. She carries a dog-eared copy of Jane Eyre in the pocket of her shawl and speaks softly about the healing properties of air and fiction. She says she feels steadier after watching the roses bloom. You join her. The stillness is different here. The sunlight does not feel sharp. It feels possible. Soon, you notice others, women reading quietly in parks. Writing in journals beneath trees. Gathering in parlors not for embroidery, but for stories. A quiet rebellion begins to take shape. Charlotte Perkins Gilman pens her short story The Yellow Wallpaper. A thinly veiled account of her own collapse during the rest cure. Other women respond. In diaries. In columns. In letters shared across continents, the words become a new form of resistance, and still, the institutions remain deaf, but women are not. Reformers begin to speak publicly. Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman in America to earn a medical degree, campaigns for more humane treatments. Florence Nightingale, remembered for war and nursing, writes about her own descent into mental exhaustion. Even Queen Victoria, shielded by crown and court, reportedly suffers from prolonged periods of melancholia after the death of her beloved Albert. The debate continues. Historians will ask for generations whether hysteria was a true disorder or simply the label society used to silence the inconvenient. Some argue it was anxiety before we had the word. Others insist it was just another way to control female bodies, but you do not need to wait for the verdict of history. You already know what it feels like. Your hands tremble when your husband speaks too loudly. You feel faint at parties. Sometimes your own name, spoken too quickly, makes your stomach turn. You are not weak. You are not mad. But you are afraid, often, and at night, when the house sighs into quiet, you write. Your pen scratches across the page with urgency. You do not write well. Or clearly. Sometimes the words make no sense. But they are yours. And that alone is a kind of healing. One day, without ceremony, you toss your rest cure instructions into the fire. The paper twists and darkens. It lifts, curls, and turns to ash. You do not look away. You feel your lips rise into a smile. Because something is shifting, the world is still slow to listen, but it is beginning, and you are part of that beginning. The ash of your rest cure instruction still floats in the fireplace, curling softly into the air like the final breath of something buried. But beyond the glass panes and velvet curtains, everything is beginning to stir and thrum with energy. The Victorian era, ornate and heavy, is fading into the sharp contours of the 20th century. The world outside no longer sighs. It pulses, you hear it before you see it. The low thunder of trains as they split the countryside. The impatient sputter of automobiles waking in the streets. The click and hiss of factory valves. The metallic clatter of telegraph machines spitting news faster than anyone can feel it. And rising above it all is the scent of something unfamiliar. Coal smoke and engine oil, certainly, but also something cleaner, crisper, with the faint metallic edge of modernity. You step outside into the current. The street is crowded, restless. It could be London. It could be New York. It almost doesn't matter. Everything is motion. Everything is noise. The air itself feels wired. Conversations dart past you like birds. Electric signs flash on rooftops. Vendors shout above the screech of streetcars. Somewhere behind you, a newspaper boy is yelling headlines about a country you have never seen. And inside your chest, something answers. Your anxiety follows, faithfully, as it always has. A silent companion. A shadow stitched to your spine. It hovers just under your breath, curled beneath your ribs, as present now as it was in the candlelit drawing rooms and shuttered rest cure chambers. But here, on this busy street surrounded by strangers and steel, it finds a new tempo. Faster. Harsher. The very world seems shaped to feed it. People walk faster now. There is less space between moments, fewer silences. Advertisements shout from every surface, promising miracles, perfumes, machines, beauty, salvation. The pressure is constant. The pace, relentless. Your nerves, shaped across centuries of whispered rules and quiet dread, now strain beneath this new velocity. And with each footstep on the pavement, they quiver, but this time, something is shifting. For the first time, a new kind of language begins to emerge. This is the era when anxiety is not merely whispered about, but examined. Named. Studied with purpose. The early 20th century does not arrive gently. It arrives like a jolt. Empires falter. Machines roar. Psychoanalysis gains momentum. And through it all, your world rearranges itself. The very ground seems unsure beneath your feet. Inside your body, the symptoms remain unchanged. Your skin dampens. Your thoughts spin in tightening spirals. Sleep arrives late or not at all. Your heart begins to gallop without warning. A flicker of movement can spark a storm behind your ribs, but now, when you speak of these things, you are met not only with dismissal. Sometimes, you are met with attention. You are no longer called hysterical at the first sign of trembling, though that accusation still lingers in the corners. You may instead hear other terms. Neurasthenia. Anxiety neurosis. Functional disorder. Your doctor might have read Freud, or at least someone who quotes him. Then comes the moment you didn't expect. You meet a physician who does not reach immediately for laudanum or a leather strap. He does not order you to lie still. Instead, he asks you to speak. He looks into your face and does not flinch. He asks about your childhood. He asks about your dreams. He asks, perhaps most terrifyingly, about your mother. It is strange. Unfamiliar. Almost invasive. You sit in a chair made for comfort, but your spine stiffens. Still, you talk. You describe the pressure in your chest that rises without reason. The way your stomach coils before social gatherings. The breathlessness that overtakes you in silent rooms. The fear that presses against you like a second skin. Your hands are cold, damp. You say this, too. He nods. He scribbles in a notebook. His handwriting loops and coils like ivy across the page. Then, carefully, he says a word you have never heard before. A German word, Angst. It means fear. But not just fear. It carries weight. Depth. A kind of silent terror that hangs beneath the surface of things. A dread of something unnamed. You feel your body respond. A tiny shift. A soft yes. The word fits, of course. Not every physician is quite so modern. There are still voices who insist your nerves must be tamed by habit, corrected by will. Cold compresses return. Ice baths. One physician tells you to rise early and ride a bicycle for 40 minutes every morning. Another suggests a diet of raw vegetables and silence. You try both. Briefly, you still cannot bear the ice, but the tide has turned, if only slightly. Hospitals begin opening new wings with soft names like nervous disorders or exhaustion wards. These spaces, reserved for women from families with the means to pay, are quieter than their predecessors. The walls are not padded, but papered. The rooms are not cells, but retreats. You are told to rest, yes, but you are also told to speak, talk therapy. The term feels clinical, but the experience is not. You sit in a room with another human being and lay your pieces down. Memory by memory. Thought by thought. There are no leeches here. No potions. Just silence and questions and, occasionally, tears that are not scolded but acknowledged. You are not certain this helps. Not at first. But something begins to loosen. Being heard, you realize, is a kind of medicine. Outside, the idea of nerves begins to seep into the culture. Women in novels excuse themselves from parties, clutching at invisible weights. Movie actresses confess to attacks of nervous strain in soft, theatrical voices. The vocabulary of suffering becomes more nuanced, though it is still not always taken seriously. Anxiety wears a new mask now, sometimes elegant, sometimes tragic, and then, the world changes again, the war arrives. World War I explodes across continents with the force of something ancient and terrible. Men who once spoke in clipped tones about honor and glory now return with trembling limbs and hollow eyes. They wake screaming. They flinch at the sound of rain. They forget their own names. Shell shock, they call it, and suddenly, for the first time, the world sees anxiety as something real. Something visible. Something male. This matters, because now, what has been dismissed for centuries as delicate female excess is being witnessed in generals. In heroes. In sons, doctors begin to understand. Slowly. Unevenly. But the door opens. They see that trauma has shape, that fear has residue, that the body remembers even when the mind tries to forget. Shell shock does not remove the stigma you carry. But it does bend it, because now, anxiety is no longer just a weakness. It is evidence. It is injury. You watch the men return home. You see them shaking in doorways. You hear their voices fall apart. And though their suffering is terrible, there is, inside you, a quiet recognition. A silent understanding. You have lived with this. Now they do, too. Of course, the recognition is not equal. Male anxiety becomes noble. Female anxiety remains indulgent. Still, something in the medical world shifts. You are no longer locked away by default. You are invited to speak. You are given paper and pen. You are offered books instead of sedatives. You are taught to breathe. Slowly. Gently. Like it matters. Some clinics explore new forms of healing. Gardening. Painting. Sewing. Not as chores, but as medicine. You lose yourself in a flower bed. In the stroke of a brush. In the rhythm of a needle pulling thread. You are not being cured. You are being comforted. You take walks near the river. You write in notebooks with soft covers. You begin to say the phrase panic attack in your mind, testing its shape. It does not solve everything. But it helps to name the thing. Historians debate what this period means. Some say it marks the birth of modern anxiety. Others argue it simply offered a cleaner way to describe old wounds. Some claim it brought freedom. Others say it merely swapped superstition for science. Without addressing the pain, you are not sure who is right, but you keep going. Your breath catches, sometimes, on nothing. You still startle at shadows. Sleep is not always kind, and yet, something is different, because now, in small corners of the world, your suffering is no longer labeled sin. Or weakness. Or drama. It is named. It is studied. It is slowly, haltingly, beginning to be understood. It is real, it is human, and, perhaps for the first time, it is being met with care. The clatter of horse hooves has faded into memory. The sharp crack of carriage wheels on cobblestone, once familiar, now feels distant. The gentle hiss of gas lamps, the flickering glow of their flames against brick walls and velvet curtains, has given way to something colder, something cleaner. There is the steady hum of electricity now, rising from wires that stretch overhead, a humming web that threads through the city like veins. Elevators climb the steel skeletons of new buildings, groaning upward with mechanical rhythm. Wristwatches, once a novelty, now tick firmly against your skin, each second pulsing in time with your heartbeat. The 20th century is not approaching anymore. It has arrived. It is unfolding around you in full stride, and you are stepping directly into it. You walk into the jazz age, into an era that glitters on the surface and trembles just beneath. It is a world drenched in gold and smoke and motion. The streets flash with light and sound. Dresses shimmer with fringe, pearls clatter against skin, laughter bubbles up through gin and saxophones. It is a moment defined by extremes, euphoria and exhaustion, freedom and fear. The cities are alive in a way that overwhelms the senses. You stand on a crowded street in the 1920s. It might be Chicago. It might be Berlin. The names matter less than the feeling. You are wearing a dress that defies your mother's expectations. Hemmed above the ankle and paired with stockings you had to hide at first. Your hair is cut into a neat bob, an act of defiance you practiced in the mirror for days before walking into the salon. Around you, people move quickly. Their conversations snap like fingers. Their steps echo with urgency. The music surges with an edge, with something unruly and wild, as if the war has not truly ended, but instead been absorbed into the rhythm of everyday life. There is dancing, loud and fevered, as though bodies are trying to shake off something they cannot name. You are told you are free. That the war changed everything. That this is a time for women to rise, to celebrate, to shine. You are told you are liberated. Empowered. Modern, and yet, there is something lodged in your chest. A tightness. An ache that no one seems to see. You feel it in department stores, surrounded by silk and perfume and mirrored walls that reflect back a version of you you barely recognize. You feel it in the subway, underground, where the air is thick and the space seems to close in around you. You feel it at parties, where the volume is too much and the smiles too wide. You linger in doorways. You slip out before dessert is served. You light a cigarette with shaking fingers and hope no one notices. This era, they say, is progress. You call it noise. The good news, if such a thing exists, is that you are no longer labeled hysterical. That word, so saturated with accusation and misunderstanding, has started to fade. The bad news is that it has been replaced. Now, you are called neurotic. A word that floats like smoke. Slippery. Vague. Clinical in tone but just as diminishing. It becomes a catch-all, a basket into which every inconvenient emotion is placed. Sadness. Panic. Obsession. Longing. Dread. All folded together, unnamed and unexamined, the age of Freud has arrived. His theories echo through lecture halls and spill into coffeehouses. They drift from the pages of medical journals into the pages of women's magazines. Repression. Desire. Childhood. Subconscious. New language blooms. But even as the vocabulary changes, your experience remains blurred. Women's anxiety is still painted in pastels, wrapped in politeness, softened at the edges. You are no longer punished for your nerves, but you are still not taken seriously. You are told you are imaginative. Artistic. Sensitive. You are encouraged to rest, to take up less space. Neighbors recommend fresh air and early bedtimes. Friends suggest marriage. Then children. Then more rest. Strangers tell you to smile, you want to scream, but you swallow it whole, you try modern medicine. Barbiturates, mostly. Small white pills with neat labels and promises of peace. They bring heavy sleep, a kind of hush that feels almost holy. But the quiet doesn't last. When you wake, the fear has returned, sharper than before. You tell your doctor, and he nods. He asks if you've considered more structure. He recommends housework. Marriage again. A baby again. He tells you your body is looking for purpose. He never once asks what your mind might need, then everything changes. Again, war returns. Bigger. Louder. Deadlier. The world breaks open. World War II begins, and the familiar boundaries of life dissolve. Families scatter across continents. Borders shift and crumble. And with the chaos comes a new kind of anxiety. One that is vast. One that is shared, but this time, you are not just watching. You are working. You drive ambulances through bombed streets. You assemble engines with oil-streaked hands. You sit in code rooms and break messages that decide the fate of nations. You feed cities, raise children, carry grief. You are the backbone of a world in collapse, the quiet strength behind every battlefield. The world praises your resilience. But no one asks about the cost. Your anxiety grows with your responsibilities. It sharpens, gains edges. It walks beside your pride, your exhaustion, your sense of duty. It becomes a silent companion. But something else begins to grow, too. In quiet kitchens. In the space between sirens. In letters and glances and whispers over tea. A voice, it is not loud yet. But it is steady. I am tired. I cannot sleep. I shake for no reason. I cry without warning. And then, softly, someone says, "Me too." It is not yet called therapy. But it is a beginning. The war ends. The men come home. The world insists on healing. You are told to step back. To return to the kitchen, to soft fabrics and pleasant smiles. To pretend the years of strength never happened. To pretend the tension never lived in your bones, but your nerves do not forget. The pills arrive in full force now. Bottles in pastel colors. New names. New promises. Milltown. Librium. Valium. They call it relief. They call it progress. They call it help for the housewife's little problem. You take one. Then another. And for a while, things are quiet, but the quiet feels wrong. It feels hollow. You move through your days like a reflection. You clean with precision. You smile in photographs. You speak at dinner parties and laugh at the right time. But your voice echoes, even in your own ears. You feel as though you have been wrapped in gauze. Functioning. But no longer feeling, and somewhere inside, something begins to resist. Voices rise again. This time, louder. Bolder. In books. On television. In meeting halls and newsletters. Women begin to say what you have always known but could never name. Betty Friedan speaks of it. The ache. The emptiness behind the perfect smile. The question you could never quite ask aloud. The world begins to listen. Not all of it. But enough. Psychiatry starts to shift. The old words lose their grip. By the time the DSM-3 is published, neurosis is gone. In its place are new names. Real names. Specific names. Generalized anxiety disorder. Panic disorder. Social phobia. The bucket is emptied, sorted, understood. It is not everything. But it is something. You meet a doctor who listens. Who does not interrupt. Who hands you forms, yes, but also offers you the space to speak freely. You talk about sleep. About fear. About how your chest tightens in the quiet hours of the morning. You mention the dreams. The thoughts. The patterns you never understood. The doctor nods. Not to judge. Just to hear. They offer something new, cognitive behavioral therapy. A map for the loops in your mind. A way to trace your fear and choose a different path. You begin to understand the storm. You begin to learn how to stay still in its center, and for the first time in years, you feel something more than panic. You feel possibility. Your anxiety is no longer a character flaw. It is not your womb or your weakness. It is not your sadness dressed as selfishness. It is not failure. It is not sin, it is anxiety, and it has a name. Not everyone is ready to hear it. At book clubs and church groups, when you mention therapy, the conversation shifts. But you do not feel embarrassed. You feel fluent. As if you are learning a language your great-grandmother was never taught. You begin to know yourself. You notice what sparks your fear. You keep notes. You pay attention to what calms you. You breathe on purpose. You stay in the room. You allow the storm to pass without chasing it away, and slowly, steadily, a truth unfolds. You were never the only one, you never were. There were always women like you. In every age. In every place. Quiet. Watching. Feeling. Surviving. They did not always have the words. But now, finally, you do. The television flickers to life, its blue light casting a glow across the kitchen tiles. There is a jingle playing now, something chirpy and persistent, with a melody so bright and bouncy it feels almost aggressive. It lodges itself in your head before you've had time to notice. On the screen, a woman in polished pearls floats across a spotless living room, vacuuming the carpet with uncanny ease. She moves with robotic grace, her lipstick untouched, her heels unscuffed. This is the 1980s, and everything seems dialed up past its limit. The volume of daily life has increased. The music blares with synthetic beats. The colors clash in neon and chrome. Hair reaches skyward in carefully teased waves. Shoulder pads expand until they resemble armor. And your anxiety? It has adapted to this new decade. It has become faster, sharper, more alert, its rhythm syncing with the thrum of this fast-forward world. You sit at your kitchen table, which gleams under the fluorescent light. The surface is laminated, patterned with cheery fruit you never bought. Beside you, a mug of instant coffee steams faintly, thin and slightly bitter. You reach for a magazine that promises beauty and balance. Its pages are glossy and bright, filled with ads for miracle wrinkle creams, pink razors, and perfumes with names like Desire and Escape. The women in the photographs smile with manic joy, holding grapefruit slices and wine glasses. Dressed in silk robes or aerobics gear. You flip through without focus, until one headline catches your eye: how to know if you're just stressed. Or something more. You stop. You scan the first few lines. Then you start again, reading more carefully. You turn the page and return to the beginning, reading it a third time. By then, your stomach is clenched. Because suddenly, it occurs to you that what you've always dismissed as simple stress, tight schedules, racing thoughts, restless nights, might be something else entirely. Something deeper. Something with roots, with history, with an explanation. This is the decade when anxiety begins to step tentatively into public awareness. It is still misunderstood. It is still spoken of carefully, in soft tones or with a nervous laugh. It is still clouded by euphemism and avoidance. But it is no longer completely hidden. It is beginning to find a name. It slips into casual conversation. It appears in advice columns and daytime television. It makes its way into vocabulary people actually use. You are no longer described as simply nervous, or melancholic, or fragile. You are told, perhaps for the first time, that you may have something called an anxiety disorder, and oddly, despite the weight of the phrase, it feels like a form of recognition. Like a light flickering on in a room you thought you were alone in, around you, the world accelerates. Offices fill with the soft gray hum of cubicles. Telephones shrink and go cordless. Pagers buzz at your waist. Fax machines screech beside piles of memos. Everything moves faster, tighter, more urgently. Efficiency becomes a currency. Output becomes identity. And women, as always, are expected to keep pace, to absorb this pressure without pause. You are told you can have it all. A thriving career. A marriage that glows with romance and laughter. Children who never cry in public. A dinner on the table by 6 o'clock, followed by clean counters, toned arms, and peaceful sleep. A smiling photograph for the holiday card. A home that smells like lemon polish. A self that never falters. What you are not told is how impossible this will feel. How the checklist becomes a form of quiet torment. How the weight of this ideal begins to anchor itself in your chest, pressing down, inch by inch. No one warns you that the pressure might make your breath come shallow. That you might wake up at 3 a.m. unable to name what's wrong but unable to fall back asleep. That your hands might tremble when your baby cries. That you might forget the last time you sat down without folding laundry or answering a phone. No one tells you that the smile might begin to feel like a mask. That your body might begin to protest in small, stubborn ways, so you do what you've learned to do, you smile anyway. You push through. You cover the cracks. I'm just tired. I've been busy lately. I think I need more iron. But each time you say it, you feel the silence expand around you. Each time you minimize it, the fear you've tucked away wraps a little tighter, and yet, something is beginning to shift. Slowly, quietly, some doctors begin to ask different questions. Not many, but enough, if you persist. If you advocate. If you gather your courage. You might be referred to a specialist. A psychiatrist. Someone who looks you in the eye and does not wave away your symptoms. You hear a phrase, carefully spoken, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. SSRI. You write it down. You repeat it in your head. You begin to recognize the names, Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft. Words that sound foreign, clinical, slightly futuristic. But also, maybe, like hope, you read. You hesitate. You worry about side effects. You worry about what people will think, and then, after weeks, maybe months, you try Prozac. The change is not dramatic. There are no bright lights, no music swelling in the background. But something begins to shift. The panic no longer roars. The dread no longer wakes you before the alarm. The fog that hung over your mornings begins to thin. For the first time in years, you feel your shoulders drop. You fall asleep and wake up without tears. The air feels less heavy. And the next morning, you cry. Not out of fear, but out of relief. Because peace feels possible. Because calm no longer feels like a stranger. Still, not everyone understands. The coworker chuckles. The happy pills, huh? Another waves it off. You just need to hit the gym more. A well-meaning friend recommends yoga, kale, essential oils. You want to scream into a pillow, because this isn't about jogging or scented candles. This is about years of feeling dismissed. About an internal siren that no one could hear. About alarm bells ringing for so long you started to believe they were your fault, but now, someone is listening, books appear. Honest ones. Raw ones. Stories written by women who have walked through fire and lived to write about the heat. An unquiet mind. The noonday demon. You find them in bookstores, in libraries, in secondhand shops. You bring them home like sacred texts. You underline passages. You copy paragraphs into your journal. You find your own feelings on the page. You press the books to your chest like lifelines. Science joins the conversation. Studies speak of neurotransmitters and brain scans. Cortisol levels. Genetic predisposition. Research papers begin to prove what your body already knew. This is real. This is not imagined. You are not exaggerating. You are not weak. Of course, there are critics. Some question whether medicalizing women's distress is helpful or harmful. Whether SSRIs are cures or chemical bandages. Whether your suffering is being healed or monetized. You understand the debate. But right now, you are simply trying to survive the afternoon. You are trying to parent. To work. To breathe. You begin to see signs of hope in the world around you. Bulletin boards at church list support groups. Flyers at the coffee shop display hotlines. Women volunteer to answer the phones. You call one evening. You do not speak. But the voice says, "It's okay. You're not alone." And for one heartbeat, that is enough. Even television begins to shift. Characters begin to appear who stutter, who panic, who overthink. Characters who take medication. Who attend therapy. Who are not jokes, but humans. You watch them and feel seen. At work, a memo goes up, employee assistance program now available. You take 3 weeks to decide. Then you go. The office is plain. The counselor is kind. She hands you a breathing worksheet. A tea bag. A paper folder with resources. You walk out feeling something unfamiliar. Not fixed. Not cured. But noticed. Supported. You are not invisible anymore. At home, your daughter watches you. She finds your journal one night, her fingers brushing the pages. Her eyes lift to meet yours. You hesitate. You think about hiding it. You think about lying, but instead, you tell her the truth. Sometimes I get scared. And I don't always know why. She nods. Her voice is small. Me too. And something new begins. You build a vocabulary together. A way of speaking that does not begin in shame or end in secrecy. You teach her how to breathe deeply. How to name what hurts. How to ask for help and not whisper while doing it, and one day, when it happens, her first panic attack, age 14, in a crowded hallway, she already knows what it is. She already knows she will survive. She already knows this is not a failure, because you have given her what you never had, not silence. Not denial, but something stronger, understanding. A soft blue light glows from your pocket, faint but insistent. It pulses like a beacon, like a breath you didn't mean to hold. It is 2007. The phone is no longer attached to the wall, no longer restricted to a cord that keeps it in the kitchen or beside the bed. It has slipped its leash. It is no longer just a tool. It is an appendage, a companion, a presence. It is in your hand as you walk through doorways. It rests against your ear as you pace the hallway. It buzzes against your thigh during meetings. It sits beside your pillow, glowing in the darkness while you sleep. And now, in some strange, invisible way, it has entered your mind. It is part of you. And with it, your anxiety has found a new and permanent address. Welcome to the digital age of relentless connection. A time when silence is rare and solitude is suspicious. A time when every vibration carries urgency. When every ping carries the weight of the unexpected. Every notification sounds like a warning. Each alert feels like an invisible tap on the shoulder, reminding you that you are never off the clock. That there is always something else to respond to, something else to fix, something else to read, react to, or remember. You are more connected than you have ever been in your life. And, simultaneously, more overwhelmed than you ever imagined possible. It begins slowly, almost invisibly, with new habits that feel harmless at first. You wake up in the morning, eyes still heavy with sleep, and reach instinctively for your phone before your body has even moved. Before your feet hit the floor. Before your mind can form a single complete thought. You open an app. You scroll. Without thinking, without processing. Breaking news blurs into rising death tolls. Political chaos stacks beside natural disasters. There are celebrity scandals. Online arguments. Warnings of inflation, collapse, war, drought. You blink. You keep scrolling. Your heart rate rises. Your throat tightens. Your shoulders lift toward your ears. There is no visible threat in your room, nothing new under your roof. But your brain responds as if you are under siege. It cannot tell the difference between a saber-toothed predator in the woods and a flashing banner headline on your screen. The fear is real. The urgency is real. Even if the threat is only digital, your calendar dings, one reminder after another. Your day is mapped by overlapping rectangles of responsibility. A work meeting. A dental appointment. A school pickup. A deadline you forgot. Your inbox is flooded, and half the subject lines are marked urgent. You squint at a text from a friend. Just one word. Hey. That is all. But somehow, That one word fractures your focus. Your brain races to interpret. What do they want? Did you forget something? Are they upset? Are you being ghosted or guilted or simply greeted? Should you answer right away? Or wait? How long is too long? What tone should you use? Everything is happening. All the time. Everywhere. And that, exactly, is the problem. By the early 2010s, anxiety begins to appear in places you never expected. Not only in therapists' offices or whispered phone calls, but in public posts and social media captions. Tweets about spirals. Memes about intrusive thoughts. Instagram carousels labeled 5 signs you might have anxiety. You see stick figure cartoons collapsing under expectations. You read captions under flawless selfies that mention high-functioning panic. You scroll through strangers talking openly about their fear of phone calls, their overthinking, their insomnia. At first, it feels like relief. You are not the only one who panics during Zoom meetings. Not the only one who retypes the same message 15 times. Not the only one who plans their exit from a party before even arriving. You feel seen, but slowly, the tone begins to shift. Anxiety becomes something curated. Packaged. Marketed. It is printed in bubble letters on water bottles. It appears in pastel embroidery on sweatshirts that read mentally unwell but cute. TikToks show mental health routines set to soft piano music, with perfect lighting and face masks made of clay. The message is clear. Your fear is fashionable now. You try to feel understood. But you don't, because your anxiety is not aesthetic, it is not a vibe. It is not a brand. It is not a filter, it is waking up with your teeth clenched so hard you cannot open your jaw without pain. It is crying because you spilled your coffee and convinced yourself that it proves you are incapable. It is the static hum under your skin that does not stop, even when the room is quiet and the lights are low, and the world you live in only adds fuel. You are expected to respond to every message, to keep up with every conversation. To speak clearly, look bright, be available, stay grateful. You are told to smile through meetings. To never miss a call. To have your camera on. To remember everyone's birthday. To stay healthy, stay organized, stay inspired, so you try, you really try. You stretch. You hydrate. You breathe deeply through your nose. You buy the journal with the soft leather cover and fill it with quotes in cursive and tiny stars in gold ink. You download apps that play birdsong. You light candles that promise tranquility, and still, you wake up anxious. Doctors begin using abbreviations. GAD. OCD. PTSD. The labels are clinical, sterile, meant to categorize what is happening inside your mind. You sit through appointments. You answer intake forms. You are prescribed medications. SSRIs, SNRIs, beta blockers. Pills and bottles with neutral fonts and childproof caps. You take them home. You line them up beside your vitamins and sleep supplements. You install 5 more mindfulness apps with names like Calm and Serenity. You open one once. You try a breathing exercise. Then forget, and yet, in the middle of all this noise, something unexpected begins to rise. Women begin speaking. Not in hushed voices. Not in private. But out loud. In blogs. In podcasts. In video diaries filmed in parked cars. In journal entries read aloud. They do not wear their best faces. They cry in real time. They describe their spirals with trembling hands. They post photos of tear-stained cheeks and screenshots of therapy appointments, and other women respond. They do not look away. They do not flinch. They say yes and same and me too. It spreads. Suddenly, anxiety is not a private wound. It becomes something shared. Not something wrong with you, but something real about the world. A sign that something deeper is unwell. That the system is not sustainable, because this life, this modern life, is built to fracture you. Built on endless comparisons, endless alerts, endless performance. You scroll through someone's story of sunrise yoga on a rooftop in Bali while you sit on the floor in laundry you never folded, in the shirt you wore to sleep. Their joy feels staged but magnetic. Their happiness feels curated, but still, it pulls. And your brain tells you that you are behind. That you are failing. That your life is a shadow of what it could be, but you are not failing, you are simply exhausted. Some scholars debate the causes. Some call this a mental health epidemic. Some say anxiety has always been here, buried in silence. Others blame algorithms. Others point to overwork. Some say capitalism is the illness. Some say the phone is. Some say we have asked human minds to function like machines. And then we are shocked when they glitch. You do not have time for theory. You are living this, so you begin, gently, to resist. You delete one app. Not all of them. Just one. Enough to feel your own thoughts again. You mute one account. The one that always left you doubting yourself. You go outside. You keep your phone zipped in your pocket. You listen to your own footsteps. You look up at the trees. You answer a friend honestly. I'm having a hard time right now. You return to therapy. But now it's through a screen. No waiting room with outdated magazines. No smell of antiseptic. Just your room, your chair, and someone kind on the other side. They nod. They listen. They say, you are not too much. They say, that makes sense. And it helps, not all at once. Not like a switch. But slowly. Like dawn light behind the curtains, you begin to feel the start of a spiral. And this time, you see it for what it is. You name it. You breathe into it. You do not run from it. You stay with it. You learn how to ride the current until it quiets again. You keep peppermints in your coat pocket. You stroke your wrist where your pulse lives. You no longer feel ashamed. You care for yourself in ways you never used to believe were allowed, and one night, you open your phone not to scroll, but to post. You write just one small paragraph. Had a panic attack today. Still showed up. Still got through. That counts. 15 people like it. One person comments, thank you. Me too. And that is enough, because somewhere else, maybe on another street, or another city, or another side of the country, another woman is curled on her couch. Her screen is glowing. The noise is loud. The world feels tight. And she is scrolling. She is searching. She is looking for someone who knows how it feels, and now, because of you, because of your courage, because of your honest words. She knows the truth, she is not alone. You are sipping a turmeric latte now. The cup is warm between your palms, radiating gentle heat that settles into your fingers. It tastes faintly of earth and ginger, bitter at the edges, sweet where honey lingers. The golden color glows like caution in liquid form. Your jeans are high-waisted, your phone is face down beside you, and your calendar is color-coded with shades that represent not just meetings, but moods. Your browser window is cluttered with 17 tabs, each one whispering a different task, a different curiosity, a different urgency. It is the 2020s, and if your anxiety once simmered under the surface of your life like a quiet tremor, it has now erupted into a full rolling boil. Bubbling over into every hour of your day, just when you think you have begun to manage the endless churn of digital life, just when the swirl of notifications and updates starts to feel normal, your screen flashes a headline that holds your breath hostage: Global Pandemic Declared. At first, the words seemed distant. Weightless. As if they belonged to someone else's story. You blink. You scroll. The words remain. Then, they sink. They land in your chest like lead. A freight train of dread crashes through your kitchen, shattering every sense of normalcy, leaving only hand sanitizer, panic, and the distant echo of sirens. You stay inside. You measure time not in hours, but in cups of tea. In temperature checks, in waves of breaking news. You scrub your groceries. You wipe down doorknobs until the finish wears thin. You wash your hands until they crack and sting. You watch the city outside your window go quiet. Then restless. Then raw. You hoard canned beans, packets of pasta, and bleach wipes. You rehearse imaginary conversations at the pharmacy. You forget what it feels like to make eye contact. You forget the rhythm of casual laughter. You forget how to breathe without counting. The soft thrum that used to live quietly in your chest grows louder. It is no longer background noise. It climbs your spine. It lives behind your eyes. It tightens your throat. It becomes something that echoes in every room of your house. You are no longer simply managing your own anxiety. You are breathing the same fear as the rest of the world. The pandemic does not only bring illness. It brings grief. It brings uncertainty that coats everything like dust. It brings isolation, then burnout, then a silence that feels both heavy and hollow. And for the first time, mental health becomes a part of the public conversation. Not tucked into the back of magazines. Not whispered behind closed doors. But declared on news segments. Printed in headlines. Spoken aloud. Your anxiety is not rare anymore. It is not a personal defect. It has become the shared language of a global community trying to hold itself together. The world closes in. Offices shut. Classrooms vanish. Kitchens become workspaces. Bedrooms become offices. Therapy, like everything else, moves online. One day you are sitting in a softly lit room with gentle music and tissue boxes. The next, you are crying in front of a grainy laptop camera while your neighbor's dog barks endlessly through the walls. You mute the mic so you can sob. You forget how to adjust the volume. Your therapist waits, eyes steady, voice soft. And somehow, despite the chaos, the connection holds, because this time, you are not pretending. You are too exhausted to wear the mask. Too drained to smile through it. You stop performing strength. You begin to tell the truth. You tell your coworkers, I am not okay today. You leave the Zoom happy hour before it begins. You say no to small talk. You say no to expectations. You say no to pretending that grocery shopping is easy. And no one looks surprised. Because they feel it too, then something unexpected begins to bloom, compassion surfaces. A friend texts you every evening. The message is always the same, how's the spiral today? It is not invasive. It is not dramatic. It is quiet presence. You answer honestly. Sometimes you say manageable. Sometimes you say rough. Sometimes you just send a single emoji. They reply with a heart. You laugh. You breathe. For the first time in days, you feel like someone sees you. The phrase mental health day becomes part of the public vocabulary. No longer a euphemism for laziness. No longer a joke. It becomes necessary. Workplaces begin whispering about wellness. Schools download mindfulness apps. Even social media, the place where perfection used to be mandatory, begins to reflect the cracks. Influencers post crying selfies. Captions say, "This is me today." The mask slips. And behind it, something more human is revealed. In those moments, you see something real. You look back at your mother. You see her differently now. You remember the tightness in her shoulders. The way her voice sometimes wavered when she told you everything was fine. The long pauses in front of the stove. The quiet moments in the laundry room. She never said the word anxiety. But you know now what she was carrying. You call her, you speak, you say, I think I get it now. She is quiet. Then her voice breaks, barely above a whisper. She says, so do I, and all the while, science begins to catch up. Brain scans show what fear looks like. MRIs reveal the storms inside your head. Cortisol spikes are mapped. Researchers explain the way breath connects to heart rate, to memory, to presence. You learn about the vagus nerve. You stretch into yoga not to post about it, not to compete, not to shrink your waistline, but to feel your body as a place of grounding instead of tension. The medications improve. The fog lifts more gently. The side effects lessen. You go to the doctor, and she listens. She does not tell you to get more sleep. She does not prescribe kale or optimism. She does not blame your hormones. She looks you in the eye. She listens. She believes you. You begin to say the word trauma. It feels heavy in your mouth. But it fits. You learn that trauma is not only violence or war or tragedy. It can be 1,000 quiet moments of being dismissed. It can be chronic stress. It can be years of pretending. Years of holding your breath. You understand now that anxiety is not just a feeling in your head. It is in your back. Your shoulders. Your jaw. Your breath. It is not a malfunction. It is not a moral failing. It is your body remembering what it was never allowed to feel, so you stop trying to crush it, you stop trying to outpace it. You stop trying to bury it in productivity. Instead, you begin to listen. You begin to make room. You begin to soften. You journal without judgment. You cry without shame. You let the tears come and do not explain them away. You are no longer hiding. You are healing. And more than that, you are passing healing forward. Your daughter comes home with red eyes and trembling hands. She is holding a crumpled math test. She is bracing herself. She is expecting shame, but you do not say, you'll be fine. You do not say, stop crying. You say, it is okay to feel anxious. That does not mean something is wrong with you. She breathes out slowly. Her shoulders drop. She looks at you with something like surprise, something like relief. As if she has been holding her breath all week and did not know it, and just like that, the healing begins again. But this time, sooner. This time, with language. This time, with space. Historians will look back and argue about what defined this decade. Some will point to death tolls and political divides. Some will write about isolation and disruption. But others will say it was this. This quiet revolution. This moment when the world turned inward and finally noticed how deeply everyone was hurting. They will name it the Great Resignation. They will call it quiet quitting. They will write about the fall of hustle culture, the rise of self-compassion, the flood of therapy memes, the raw videos of people lying in bed saying, I am trying. It is messy. It is imperfect. But it is real. You stop apologizing for your rest. You stop labeling yourself lazy for sleeping late. You stop criticizing your body for flinching at every sound. Instead, you speak clearly. You say, I am anxious today. And that is okay. You do not resist the feeling. You offer it a seat. You allow it to be part of the room, without giving it the whole stage. You walk through your day with it beside you. You cook with trembling fingers. You hum along to soft songs. You cry during commercials. You do not hide from yourself anymore, and in the stillness, in the space you have made, you finally understand, anxiety is not your enemy, it is your alarm. Your signal. Your ancient instinct wrapped in modern confusion. It is the echo of every time your body tried to protect you. And now, at last, after generations of being shamed and silenced, you are learning what to do with it, you are learning how to listen. You wake to a soft, melodic chime. Not the blaring shriek of an old alarm clock, not the jarring buzz that once sent your heart racing before your eyes even opened, but something gentler. Something that rises like music from beneath the surface. Your phone, resting on your nightstand, has already entered focus mode, quietly filtering the flood of notifications that would otherwise crash into your morning. The noise has been intercepted before it could find you, the blinds begin to lift, slowly, in measured increments. Light pours into the room not by accident, but by design. You spent 2 full hours last Sunday adjusting the schedule for this moment. You calibrated the angle of the sunrise. You aligned the brightness with your sleep cycle. You studied your own patterns like a map and rearranged your environment to meet them. You stretch. You breathe. You pause. This is not control. It is care. Because after living inside a nervous system that once misfired at every sound, every change, every unanswered message, you have learned something essential. If anxiety insists on coming with you into the future, then the least it can do is show up on time. Welcome to the era of conscious coping. This is not the same world that once shamed quiet trembling or punished emotional messiness. Mental health is no longer locked behind therapy doors or whispered through clenched teeth in crowded rooms. It has been printed onto stickers, displayed on panel stages, and spoken aloud in group chats and comment sections. It appears on Instagram carousels, on t-shirts, in workplace slide decks and school announcements. It is part of the culture now. It has shape. It has vocabulary. It has visibility. You live in a world where anxiety does not hide anymore. It flows through the microphones of morning podcasts. It fills the subject lines of newsletters curated to soothe or stimulate. It scrolls past in soft-filtered TikToks with captions about spirals, self-regulation, and inner child repair. It appears in apps with pastel logos. It sits beside slogans like it's okay to rest and your worth is not your productivity. It shows up on coffee mugs and tote bags that read my brain has too many tabs open. Your smartwatch detects your rising pulse before you even notice it yourself. Your most used playlist is named Calm. And your friends, when they check in, do not ask how are you. They ask, are you spiraling today? And the strange thing is, it's not a joke. Not really, and you are functioning, not flawlessly. Not without effort or friction. But you are moving forward with steadiness. And something else that feels even more important, self-awareness, because something has shifted. Not just in the world outside you, but within your own relationship to yourself. You do not treat anxiety as a failing. You do not name it as weakness. You no longer tense at its arrival like it is a storm you must outrun. Instead, you treat it as weather. You track its patterns. You make adjustments. You do not curse the rain. You carry an umbrella, you build routines now. But these are not cages. These are anchors. They are soft places to land. You meditate sometimes, not because someone told you to, but because silence has become a space you can return to. You stretch. You notice where tension lives, in your hips, in your jaw, in your shoulders, and you tend to it. You drink water before coffee when you can. When you cannot, you forgive yourself. You take vitamins. You light a candle. You sit in stillness for 5 whole minutes and count that stillness as success. You have discovered something radical. Gentle care for your body is a quiet rebellion in a world that constantly demands more from you. When your thoughts race, you pick up a pen. You do not try to make it beautiful. You write for clarity. You write to see what is real. You write, I am safe. You underline, "This will pass." You whisper to yourself, "Not every thought is true." And slowly, the room inside your mind becomes a softer place. When panic rises, when your palms sweat during a meeting, when your breath shortens in the cereal aisle of a grocery store, you do not fear the fear. You do not run from it. You place your hand gently over your chest and say, "Hello, old friend." Because that is what anxiety is now. Not an enemy. Not a monster. Not a flaw. It is a companion. An overly cautious, well-meaning roommate who misreads cues but always believes it is protecting you. Sometimes you take medication. Sometimes you don't. Maybe you found a therapist you trust. Maybe therapy didn't work the first time but you are willing to try again. Maybe your healing looks like long walks before sunrise. Or maybe it looks like reading philosophy, or dancing in your kitchen, or texting your group chat 3 words, "I am spiraling." And waiting for someone to respond with a meme of a cat wearing sunglasses and eating ice cream in a bubble bath. It all counts. There is no perfect formula. No universal prescription for healing. And that is the liberating truth. You are allowed to define your own recovery. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to move slowly. The world is catching up. Some companies now offer mental health stipends. Some workspaces declare no meeting Fridays. Therapy, while still not accessible to everyone, is more visible than ever before. Insurance sometimes covers it. Not always. But sometimes. And sometimes, compared to before, feels like progress. You speak words your ancestors never learned. Words like somatic grounding, emotional regulation, interoception. You Google them. You try them. You pass them down. You teach your children how to breathe when they are afraid. You teach yourself how to rest without apology. You stop comparing your pace to someone else's. You no longer believe that healing must involve sunrise yoga or green juice or spiritual retreats in the mountains. Sometimes healing is brushing your teeth at noon. Sometimes it is putting on real pants. Sometimes it is simply surviving the morning without checking your symptoms on the internet. That is enough. You begin to notice patterns. You recognize what stirs your nervous system. You see how caffeine, lack of sleep, background noise, and constant stimulation amplify your internal alarms. You recognize when your brain begins to tell you stories that sound like danger. You do not silence it with logic. You do not argue. You respond with gentleness. You say, "I hear you. But I am okay right now." Historians still debate this era. They ask whether this increase in anxiety is a sign of societal collapse or the awakening of a species finally paying attention to its inner life. They point to capitalism, to climate dread, to inequality, to digital overstimulation. But they also point to strength, to the courage it takes to name pain, to the quiet resistance of women who are finally being heard. You have read the research. But more than that, you have lived it. You remember what you were taught: be nice. Be quiet. Be agreeable. Be small. Be okay, always okay. Now you choose something else. Now you choose honesty. You speak your truth. Even when your voice trembles. Especially when it trembles. And those around you, they listen. Not always perfectly. Not always immediately. But more than before. Enough to notice the difference. Enough to feel the shift. You are part of something bigger. A generation learning how to name its shadows. A community that can cry in the morning and lead a meeting by afternoon. A movement that knows contradiction is not failure. That holding fear and still showing up is its own kind of strength. You are not cured. You are awake, and in this new world, where stillness is rare and softness is power, that awakening is not a weakness. It is your strength, because now, when anxiety knocks at your door, you do not collapse. You notice. You respond. You take a breath. You drink water. You call someone you trust. You name what is happening. You sit with it. You move through it, and all the while, you remind yourself, this anxiety does not define who you are, it reminds you, that you feel deeply, that you see clearly, that you are, even now, still exquisitely and beautifully human, and for today, for this moment, that is more than enough. You sit in a cafe. It smells like roasted espresso and cinnamon and something sweet you cannot quite name. The overhead lights are soft, and the low thrum of conversation surrounds you like static. Your earbuds are in, playing a mental health podcast just loud enough to drown out the clinking of ceramic mugs and the occasional hiss of the milk steamer behind the counter. You hold an oat milk something in your hands, it might be a latte, it might be a chai, you honestly can't remember anymore, but it is warm and grounding. Each sip reminds you to stay here. In this moment. In this body, across the room, someone else is doing almost the exact same thing. Their earbuds are in. Their eyes are down. Their fingers scroll across a glowing screen. Their head bobs slightly in a rhythm you recognize. They do not notice you. You do not speak. And yet, in a quiet and almost imperceptible way, you are in sync. Two people in parallel, each seeking a little quiet, a little steadiness, in a world that rarely offers either. You are not connected. But you are not alone, either. Because you are both tuning into the same quiet revolution. A shift that is not marked by protests or slogans, but by soft confessions and deep, intentional breaths. Anxiety is no longer something tucked away behind closed doors or covered up with polite smiles. It is something people openly acknowledge now. It is something people make room for. Even plan around. You factor it into your calendar, your clothing, your commute. You think about it when you decide whether to attend a gathering or leave a text unread. It becomes part of the architecture of your daily life, not an interruption but a presence. People joke about it now. Not always as a defense. Sometimes as a kind of shared language. In memes, in tweets, in group chats, in small asides that carry a surprising depth of truth. And when you hear those jokes, when someone casually says, "If I don't get a reply in 5 minutes, I assume I've ruined everything," it doesn't make you laugh out loud. It makes you exhale. Because it means someone else gets it. Someone else knows. This is what emotional fluency looks like in the modern age. The vocabulary of therapy has merged with the cadence of everyday speech. You hear people say things like set a boundary, check in with your nervous system, or sit with discomfort just as casually as they ask for the Wi-Fi password or comment on the weather. What used to feel clinical now feels communal. What used to feel strange now feels like common sense, but knowing the language doesn't mean the experience is easy. You still wake up some mornings already bracing for a day that hasn't even begun. You feel behind before your feet hit the floor. You feel like you're failing before you've had breakfast. You still spiral when a 2-sentence email reads colder than expected. You still freeze when someone you care about says, "Can we talk later?" And your brain instantly plays out 5 terrible scenarios, all at once, each one worse than the last. The catastrophizing is still there. But now you recognize it. The difference is that now you know its name. You do not sit in confusion anymore. You do not look at yourself with shame and ask, "What is wrong with me?" You ask, "What do I need right now?" And that question, that shift in tone and intention, changes everything. Slowly, you have learned to listen to your own body like you would to a scared child. With patience. With gentleness. Anxiety is no longer your enemy. It is a signal. A message from a tender part of yourself that only wants safety. And gradually, you have become more fluent in its code. You cancel plans when you feel overwhelmed. Not because you are unreliable or unwilling, but because you have learned that your energy is not limitless. It is precious. It is something you can serve and protect. You choose smaller spaces. You choose dimmer lighting. You gravitate toward shorter conversations and slower weekends. You welcome mornings without alarms and afternoons without agenda. You turn off notifications. You turn down the noise. And each time you say no, it feels less like refusal and more like preservation. It is not selfishness. It is self-respect, and the people closest to you have learned, too. Your partner no longer rushes to offer solutions. They no longer try to pull you out of it with logic or urgency. Instead, they sit beside you. In silence. In stillness. Their presence becomes a comfort. A reassurance that you do not have to be fixed to be loved. Your friend, who once told you to look on the bright side, now offers something quieter. She says, "Do you want to sit in the dark and eat cereal?" She brings 2 spoons. That, somehow, feels like the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you. Even your workplace, once a space defined by fluorescent lights and hollow encouragements, begins to change. Mental health days are added to the policy handbook. In one meeting, your manager shares a personal story about burnout and panic attacks. The room grows quiet. No one looks away. Some coworkers nod. Others wipe their eyes. No one tries to pivot back to quarterly goals or agenda points. No one dismisses it. It is not performance. It is real. It is a culture in motion. A practice still unfolding. This openness is not a trend. It is not marketing. It is not a curated aesthetic. It is survival. It is what happens when enough people stop pretending. Because anxiety is not a flaw in the system. It is the system's natural outcome. It is the biological cost of moving too fast, feeling too much, and trying to appear fine for too long. It is what happens when you push down every signal that something isn't working and expect your body to go along with the plan anyway. But something is changing. Schools are talking to children about mental health. Not just through glitter jars and happy face charts, but through open discussions about fear, loneliness, identity, and uncertainty. In one classroom, a girl stands up and says, "I'm feeling anxious today." No one laughs. No one mocks her. The room listens. Because everyone in that room has felt it too, even if they did not yet know how to name it. And your daughter, she is teaching you now. She shows you a notebook decorated with stickers and marker doodles. Inside, there are scribbles. Notes that read, "I felt weird today, and I breathed through my nose like Mom said." The pages are messy and imperfect. They are real. You blink against tears. Because she already understands something that took you decades to learn. She knows how to name the feeling. She knows it is okay to pause. She does not hide. She does not shrink, and you do not rush to fix it. You do not give her platitudes. You do not say, "You're fine." You sit next to her. You say, "Same here." She leans against you. And in that moment, she knows that she is safe, because you are done performing wellness. You are done pretending to be okay when you're not. You have traded in the exhausting theater of perfection for something that feels far messier and far more true. You have chosen honesty. And that honesty is remaking your life. It has opened doors. Not just to conversations, but to connection. You have shared tears with friends, not at parties, but in long text threads filled with typos and confessions. You have built closeness not through smiles, but through vulnerability. You have discovered that "I'm not okay" can be the most honest and most courageous form of intimacy. There are essays. There are hot takes. There are debates and opinion pieces asking whether this wave of sharing is healing or just commodifying pain. Some people say it is progress. Others say it is branding. The internet has many opinions. You keep scrolling. And then you stop, you come back to your breath. To the rhythm of your inhale and exhale. To your heartbeat. To your skin. To your present, because healing does not live in comment sections. It does not follow hashtags. It is not measured in likes or views. It happens in the quietest moments. The moments when you notice your panic rising and choose not to follow it. The moment when you pour a glass of water at 2 a.m. and tell yourself you are doing okay. The moment when you choose compassion over criticism. You keep showing up, you build what therapists call a toolkit. But it is more than that. It is a lifeline. Not just quotes and apps, but real strategies that work for your body, for your mind, for your life. You identify your triggers. You recognize your spirals. You sit through discomfort without running. You begin to trust yourself. You let yourself cry during a movie that hits too close to home. You laugh in the middle of a panic attack because your brain just tried to convince you that the microwave beep was a threat. You take breaks without apology. You leave early when you need to. You stay longer when your heart says it matters, and slowly, without fanfare or finish lines. Your life begins to shift, not because the anxiety vanishes, but because you are no longer giving it the wheel. You still feel deeply. You still react strongly. You are still sensitive. Still human. Still tender in ways that sometimes catch you off guard, but now, you are also steady. You are aware. You are grounded. You are in charge, and that, truly, is enough. It is quiet. Not the sharp-edged quiet that creeps in after an argument, or the unnerving kind that makes your heart pound in your chest like something is wrong. This quiet does not buzz with tension or make your mind race with invented disasters. No, this quiet feels different. It feels earned. It feels like a sanctuary, not a sentence. It is a quiet you have learned how to create with slow hands and a tender heart. A quiet that has taken time, effort, and practice. You have shaped it carefully, like smoothing the folds into freshly laundered linen. This silence is not empty. It is full of peace. This quiet holds you. It does not press down. It does not demand anything from you. It drapes itself around your shoulders like a shawl. Warm and weighty, and says, with a softness that reaches into your bones, "You're safe now." Outside, the world still spins with its usual intensity. You can hear it if you listen closely enough, the faraway hum of traffic weaving through intersections, the soft mechanical whir of distant elevators, the faint sound of a dog barking from a few streets away. There is the buzz of headlines, endless and relentless, flowing through the digital stream. Notifications continue to ping from devices left upside down on your nightstand or silenced in your bag. The world continues. But in here, within this space you've carefully carved out, the world has slowed, in this room, in this moment. Stillness has arrived. It has unpacked its bags. It has made itself comfortable. This is what healing begins to feel like. Not a blazing epiphany. Not a dramatic breakdown followed by immediate clarity. Not a single life-altering moment that ties everything up in a neat bow. Healing does not rush in like a thunderstorm or crack open like lightning across a dark sky. It arrives differently. It tiptoes in, breath after breath, minute after minute. It comes as a long, slow exhale that asks for nothing in return. It needs no audience, no applause. It simply exists. And somehow, that is enough. You are sitting by the window now. Outside, the light shifts slowly against the glass. A mug of tea rests on the table beside you, its warmth still lingering, its steam still rising with the delicate scent of chamomile. The mug has fingerprints on it. The tea is cooling. But it is still comforting. A soft blanket is tucked around your legs. Next to you is a novel with a bent spine, its pages marked with scribbles and dog ears, proof of your presence in the story. The book is half finished. There is no rush to complete it, you are not fixed. You are not perpetually calm. You still have moments when the storm circles back, unannounced, bold and familiar. The panic does not ask for permission. It never has. But now, you are not surprised when it visits. You do not crumble. You do not ask why. You simply meet it with steadiness. Because now, you are aware. You are conscious. You are present in your own life. And that kind of presence, that gentle waking up to yourself, feels like a kind of liberation. You see it clearly now, something the generations before you were not given the words or permission to name. You understand what was hidden from them for so long. That anxiety is not cowardice. It is not weakness. It is not a sign of a flawed spirit. It is not a failure to cope. Anxiety is the result of a sensitive, responsive nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you. It is your body reacting to a world that often feels unpredictable, unstable, and unsafe. And it is doing its best. Your nervous system has carried more than you can name. It remembers. It holds stories written long before your time, it remembers centuries of fear. The times when women were punished for being too curious, too emotional, too unwilling to shrink. It remembers the accusations, the fires, the locked doors, the cold rooms where pain was dismissed or pathologized. It holds the weight of every diagnosis that wasn't a diagnosis, every dismissal masked as concern. It remembers being labeled hysterical, hormonal, fragile, dramatic. It remembers being told you were imagining things. That you were too much. That you needed to smile more, speak less, fit better, but now, finally, you remember something different. You remember a new kind of moment. You remember standing in front of your therapist, voice shaking, and saying aloud, "This is hard." And instead of shrinking, you stayed. You remember the night you reached out for help without wrapping it in apology or jokes. You simply asked. And someone heard you. You remember waking up one morning, not feeling amazing, but feeling possible. Like maybe you could get through the day. Like maybe the weight wasn't pressing down quite as hard. You remember the moment your child looked at you, eyes wide, and said, "I feel anxious." And instead of brushing it off or rushing in with correction, you listened. You nodded. You created space. You are rewriting the story now. You understand that anxiety is not a malfunction. It is not the enemy. It is a flare. A message. A request for attention. A tap on the shoulder that says, "Please, slow down." You do not shame it anymore. You do not push it away. You do not try to crush it under the weight of performance. You meet it. You listen. You welcome it like an old companion who may never become easy company, but who deserves respect nonetheless. Sometimes, you answer with a walk. You let the movement ground you. The air, the sounds, the rhythm of your steps remind you of your body's place in the world. Sometimes, you choose stillness. You curl beneath a blanket and let silence be the medicine. Sometimes, you take a hot shower and let the water rinse the static from your thoughts. Sometimes, you let a playlist of soft, aching songs fill the room because their honesty feels like comfort. And sometimes, you do nothing. You simply let the moment come and let it leave. You remind yourself, with gentleness and without urgency, this will pass. And it does. You have built rituals. Not rigid routines, but soft structures. Gentle habits that make your days kinder. You light candles not to signal productivity, but to mark presence. You open the curtains before you open the news. You stretch not to sculpt, but to check in with your body. You drink water slowly. You speak softly, even when your thoughts are sharp. Even when you are trembling inside, and you have learned how to repair. After the panic has come and gone. After the argument. After the overwhelming day. After the plans that fell apart. You no longer spiral into shame. You do not disappear into silence. You sit with it. You trace it back. You name what hurt. And you begin again. Not with punishment. Not with blame. With breath. With time. Historians continue to debate whether modern life has made us stronger or more fragile. They write papers on the psychological toll of a world that never stops. They ask whether our collective focus on mental health is a cultural breakthrough or just another fleeting wave. They create charts. They crunch data, but you know something that numbers do not always capture. You know what it means to come home to yourself after years of absence. You know the relief of saying I'm anxious and feeling no need to explain. You know what it feels like to carry your worry and your self-worth in the same hands. You know that one does not cancel out the other. You speak to your partner with a new voice now. It is still yours, but steadier. Softer. More direct. You say, this is what I feel. You say, this is what I need. And when the words are stuck in your throat, when your chest tightens and your mind clouds, you simply reach out. You place your hand in theirs. And they take it. No questions. No fixes. Just presence. You are not walking this path alone anymore. You have found others who understand. A web of care has formed around you. Not loud. Not dramatic. But constant. The friend who sends a single emoji when words are too much. The cousin who sends potato memes without context. The group chat where people send screenshots of their lowest days and no one judges. These are more than social connections. These are the threads that hold you, and you. You are one of them now. You are the person who replies to the late-night texts. You say, I'm here and mean it. You say, take your time and do not expect anything back. You have turned your own healing into shelter. You have turned your pain into presence. You have created space for others to breathe, to cry, to be. You are no longer asking for permission to feel. You are giving it, not just once. But every day. In every choice. In every breath. You have given yourself permission. To be tired. To be overwhelmed. To be joyful. To be unsure. To be human without performing it. To be alive without always having the answers. You show up even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. Because you have inherited centuries of silence, and now you choose to speak. You have inherited generations of swallowed fear, and now you choose to exhale. You have met every version of yourself, even the frightened ones. And still, here you are, you wake up again. You put your feet on the floor. You try again, and that alone is an act of extraordinary courage, that, all by itself, is the beginning and the continuation of healing. That is the radical, beautiful truth of being here. The kettle hisses in the kitchen, a sharp and familiar sound that cuts softly through the hush of the evening. You rise slowly, stretching out stiff joints, the cool floor grounding you with each step. The kitchen light is low, golden, gentle. You move with unhurried grace, worn into your body through repetition, through nights like this one when quiet becomes something sacred. Reaching for the kettle, you lift it carefully, steady in your motion, and pour the hot water in a smooth, deliberate stream over the waiting tea bag nestled in your favorite ceramic mug. The mug is chipped slightly near the rim, a detail you have come to find comforting rather than flawed. Steam rises in delicate spirals, curling upward into the warm light, swirling with the weightless elegance of smoke and memory. It drifts past your face, carrying with it the scent of chamomile or peppermint or maybe something floral, and you breathe it in like a small ritual. It is a scent that evokes comfort, a scent stitched to countless evenings just like this one. Nights when you sought stillness and found it in the small, repeated gestures of care. It is late now. The kind of late where everything outside slows to a crawl. The kind of late when the windows no longer offer a view, only your reflection staring softly back. The kind of late when the house seems to exhale, releasing the breath it has held all day. Every clock ticks a little more softly. The air feels thick with quiet. The world beyond your walls still spins with its usual urgency. Traffic pulses far away. Headlines continue their endless renewal. Notifications flash silently across forgotten screens. But here, in this gently lit pocket of time, you have carved out stillness. You wrap a blanket around your shoulders. You sit. And for a brief and precious moment, you simply let yourself be. This is not the end of anything. This is not the final page or the closing curtain. This is a continuation. A life that makes space for anxiety instead of resisting it. A life that welcomes the truth of it and does not flinch. A life lived with it, alongside it, shaped by it, but no longer ruled by it, and you have come so far, you have traveled through years of silence passed down through generations. Through centuries of misunderstanding and dismissal. You have carried the invisible weight of being told you were too emotional, too fragile, too loud, too quiet, too much or not enough. You have lived in the shadow of myth and medical error. From ancient theories that believed illness lived in your blood or bile, to whispered fears of wombs gone wandering. From treatments involving leeches and laced handkerchiefs to the small white pills counted out in plastic bottles, the story of women's anxiety has always been one of misinterpretation. And yet, through it all, you endured. You persisted, but you are the shift in the narrative, you are the turning point, you live in a time where language is allowed to hold your experience. Where the naming of anxiety is no longer met with silence or shame. You do not need to disguise it beneath charm or cheerfulness. You are allowed to place it openly on the table beside your mug of tea. You sit with it. You acknowledge it. You say, "I know you," and the words are not fearful. They are steady, because you know the way it sneaks in without warning. You know the racing thoughts that echo too loudly in quiet rooms. The sudden grip in your chest. The trembling in your fingers. The familiar loop of thought that plays again and again, like a song you did not ask for but cannot stop. And yet, you no longer fight to make it disappear. You have learned to meet these moments with gentleness. Not because they are easy, but because they are real. Because they are part of you. Your life now carries both tension and tenderness in equal measure. You treat therapy as routine, as essential maintenance. Just like brushing your teeth or checking the smoke alarm. You speak about panic without softening your voice. You speak about fear without apology. You teach your children the language you once had to discover on your own. You show them how to listen to their breath, how to trust their instincts, how to honor their tears instead of hiding them. You build homes that offer shelter not just from the world, but from the weight of emotional expectation. Homes with soft blankets and warm light. Homes where quiet is welcomed. Homes where it is safe to fall apart, and when someone looks at you, puzzled, and says, "But you seem so calm," you do not minimize your effort. You do not dismiss your journey. You meet their gaze and answer with truth. I've worked hard to make peace with my nervous system. Because healing is not about perfection. It is not the erasure of fear. It is not the absence of anxiety. Healing is the willingness to meet anxiety without dread. One day, someone may write about this era and call it the age of anxiety. They may say the world was overrun with fear and uncertainty. That people reached a breaking point. But you know something deeper. You know this is the age of awareness. A quiet revolution. A slow unfolding. A time when women began to name the pain their mothers and grandmothers were forced to bear in silence. You have earned your rest, you have crafted a life that embraces your sensitivity as strength. You have transformed anxiety from a locked, windowless room into a space that lets in light and air. You have opened the shutters. You have let the breeze move through, and now, as the night deepens and even the stars seem to soften, you begin to release the weight of the day. You let go, you exhale with intention. You are not alone, you never truly were. You were simply waiting for a world that could hear the language of your heart, and now, at last, that world is listening. Quietly. Carefully. Fully. So here you are, resting in the quiet hours, wrapped in a blanket and a story that stretches far beyond your lifetime. This moment carries the soft echo of centuries. The weight you've carried on your chest, though not completely gone, feels lighter now. It feels like something known, not something feared. A presence, not a punishment. A sensation you can meet without panic. Take a breath now. A slow, deliberate breath. Feel your jaw begin to loosen. Let the muscles in your neck soften, the space between your shoulders widen with each gentle inhale. Let the tension that built up during the day slowly begin to melt away. In this space, nothing is urgent. There are no notifications needing answers. No messages asking for more of you. No voices telling you to be stronger, faster, better. No pressure to prove anything. No mirror to judge you. There is only you, there is only your breath, there is only the comfort that follows when truth is spoken without fear. Your anxiety is still here. And that is okay. It is not a mistake. It is not your fault. It was never an enemy, only a companion that didn't know how to speak gently. It tried to keep you safe by shouting. But now, it whispers. It sits beside you, quieter, less jagged, familiar in a way that no longer unsettles. Tonight, you rest anyway. You give your body permission to sink into softness, to find safety in the rhythm of its own breath. There is no performance here. No test you must pass before sleep arrives. You do not need to earn rest. You are allowed to have it simply because you are alive. So breathe again, let the day slip away, piece by piece. Let the silence hold you like a lullaby. Let your heartbeat be the only sound you hear. Steady and present. You are still here, you are still healing, you are still allowed to rest. Tomorrow will come with its own rhythm, its own questions, its own light. But for now, there is only this hour. This breath. This stillness. This deep and quiet peace that lives not in perfection, but in presence. Sleep well, my friend, you've made it through another day. And that is more than enough.